we head into the latter stages of the night. But for Northern Ireland, England and Wales, look at that widespread cloud across many areas. There is perhaps the potential as we head into the afternoon of a few brighter, sunnier spells to develop, maybe a bit more so than we have seen over recent days. But certainly the theme of the day is going to be fairly grey skies across the board. A little bit of a breeze in the southwest, but as I said, for many of us it is going to be relatively light winds overall. Temperatures perhaps are down by a degree or so compared to today, so we'll see around 12-13 degrees Celsius as the top temperatures for many of us. And that theme really continues as we head into the end of the weekend as well. Sunday evening is once again looking largely cloudy, perhaps a few fog patches developing in places, with the best of the clearer skies across the far north of Scotland. And it's likely to stay that way over the forthcoming week as well. High pressure remains in charge with a lot of cloud around. But as we head towards Wednesday, a slight shift in our wind direction should bring us something a little bit milder.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could win Christmas on us this year. There's cash, £20,025 in tax-free cash to make your new year go with a bang. There's also £5,000 to spend on all the gifts. We've also got Christmas lunch for you, with £500 in vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a festive GB News goodie bag. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan Tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, hello and welcome to GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the next few hours, political commentator Susie Stride. Welcome to Susie. It's her first time on the show with me. And also broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. She's always here. Can't get rid of her. Coming up, is Kemi Badenoch the right person to lead the Tory party? Now, she pipped Robert Jenrick to the post. Well, I've got a poll up on X asking you that very question. Is Kemi Badenoch the right person to lead the Tory party? Then, in difficult conversations, as the Labour Party double down on their VAT raid on private schools and independent schools prepare to sue the government, I'll be joined by the spokesperson from Education, Not Taxation. And, of course, farmers are up in arms over the proposed changes to inheritance tax, which could see many family farms not being passed down. Is Elon Musk right? Are the Labour Party at risk of destroying UK food security with their plans? But before we get stuck into all of that, let's get your latest news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you very much. And good afternoon. The top stories. Well, Kemi Badenoch has vowed to tell the truth and stand up for our principles as she was elected the new leader of the Conservative Party. Badenoch defeated Robert Jenrick in a ballot of party members. She is the fourth female leader and the first ever black leader of the party. In her acceptance speech, she said the Tories have to be honest about the fact that they made mistakes and they let standards slip. She also praised the outgoing leader, Rishi Sunak, for getting the party through a tough time.
It is the most enormous honour to be elected to this role, to lead the party that I love. The party that has given me so much. I hope that I will be able to repay that debt. I also want to thank Rishi. No one could have worked harder in such difficult times. Rishi, thank you for everything you did. We all wish you and your wonderful family the very best for the future.
While the Prime Minister has congratulated the new Tory leader, the Labour Party chair Ellie Reeves says she's worried about the policies that Kemi Badenoch would advocate as leader of the opposition. Ms Reeves criticised the Conservative Party for dragging out the leadership contest and not taking accountability for their time in government.
You know, we've spent the last 4 months with the Conservatives, rather than take any kind of responsibility for the mess that they've left the country in after 14 years of Conservative government, rather than take responsibility, they've just been talking to each other with more sort of division and chaos and infighting as this leadership election has played out.
A 13-year-old girl who was stabbed yesterday morning was known to her attackers, according to Humberside Police. 6 teenagers have been arrested after the girl was found with multiple stab wounds at the side of a major road in East Yorkshire. Police say she was found on the A63 in Hessle with life-threatening injuries, including lacerations to her neck, abdomen, chest and back. 4 boys and 2 girls aged between 14 and 17 were arrested in a nearby wooded area and are being questioned on suspicion of attempted murder. The victim remains in hospital in a critical condition. In other news, more than 5,000 migrants arrived in the UK after crossing the Channel in October, making it the busiest month of the year so far. According to Home Office figures, 230 people made the journey in 5 boats on Thursday, which brings the total number of arrivals recorded last month to 5,417. It comes after the 10th death this month was recorded on Wednesday. And the deadliest flash floods in Spain's modern history have killed at least 211 people. Dozens are still accounted for 4 days after torrential rain has swept through the eastern region of Valencia. Teams continue to search for bodies after flash flooding swept through large areas of the country. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has ordered the largest peacetime troop deployment to deal with the aftermath of this flooding, with 5,000 being drafted in to help. Now, the drug watchdog has warned it's received up to 10 reports of deaths linked to weight loss jabs such as Ozempic. Cases of serious reactions to the drug, including nausea and vomiting, are now in the thousands. This comes as the General Pharmaceutical Council announced plans for additional safeguards to ensure online pharmacies are properly checking patient information. And Covent Garden's famous Christmas tree has been handpicked and freshly harvested ahead of this year's festive season. For the 15th consecutive year, the 55-foot Norwegian spruce Christmas tree was chosen from Woods Farm, a 200-acre festive forest near Solihull in the West Midlands. Woods Farm also supplies festive trees to other notable locations such as Downing Street and Windsor Castle. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More news from me in half an hour.
Thank you, Tatiana. Welcome. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online, and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Coming up, Kemi Badenoch has been elected as the new leader of the Conservative Party, defeating Robert Jenrick to become the fourth female leader of the party and the first black female leader. Well, we'll have all the reaction to this throughout. Then, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is Kemi Badenoch the right choice to lead the Conservative Party? Right now, I've got a pull up on X asking you that very question. Then there's always something going on in the royal household. This week has been no different. Royal biographer Angela Levin will join us to give us a rundown. On the menu, Prince Harry again, obviously, and also Prince Andrew. Lots more in the next hour as well. Stay tuned as ever. Send me your thoughts. Post your comments. gbnews.com/your say. So earlier today, the former Trade and Business Secretary, Kemi Badenoch, was declared the new Conservative Party leader. She beat former Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick in the race among Tory members following a lengthy contest. Now, Kemi received over 53,000 votes, whilst Robert Jenrick got just 41,000. And this comes as almost 4 months after the Tories' devastating general election defeat, which then triggered former leader Rishi Sunak's resignation. Well, joining me now is GB News political correspondent Olivia Utley. She's outside Conservative Party HQ. Olivia, thank you very much for joining us. Have you managed to speak to anybody around that area? And what is the general gist or what are people feeling about Kemi becoming the leader?
Well, Kemi Badenoch left the building about an hour ago. She was not willing to speak to me or any of the other reporters on the ground here, which continues a bit of a theme of this leadership campaign. Jenrick has been all over the airwaves, whereas Kemi Badenoch has been much, much quieter. We've also seen, although it hasn't been possible to speak to quite a few of her most loyal supporters, people like Andrew Bowie, Laura Trott, Helen Whately, lots and lots of ministers who worked, former ministers who worked under Kemi Badenoch have supported her, and that's probably a good sign for the new leader of the Conservative Party. There have been whispers among Conservative Party watchers that Kemi Badenoch wasn't sort of temperamentally well suited to the job of leader of the opposition. She's known as a little bit ratty and difficult to work with, but the very fact that so many of her former colleagues did back her is probably a confident sign. It is going to be an uphill struggle for Mrs Badenoch. She won this vote with about 56% of the membership. Now, that's not nearly as a resounding a victory as Boris Johnson won in 2019. In fact, it's quite similar to what Liz Truss won back in 2022. The other issue is that the Conservative Party parliamentary party is also pretty split, whereas in previous contests, Rishi Sunak got a bigger majority than Liz Truss among the parliamentary party, and Boris Johnson had the lion's share of the parliamentary party. This time around, the parliamentary party was split 3 ways between Jenrick, Cleverly and Badenoch, pretty much equally. And the fact that the turnout was pretty low among Conservative Party members. Just over 72% of Conservative Party members voted in this election. That's down from 87% under Boris Johnson and 82% under Liz Truss. So she doesn't have a kind of resounding platform from which to build from. That said, it does feel a little bit different this time. The Conservatives are very willing to at least pay lip service to the idea that they must show a united front and unite behind Kemi Badenoch. They simply they can't afford, with just 122 MPs, to have that kind of infighting that we've seen as characteristic of the party for the last sort of 10 years or so. So that's a positive sign for Mrs Badenoch going forward. we're not expecting to hear her shadow cabinet announcement until early next week. So hold your horses if you're waiting on that. But it'll be really interesting to see who she does choose to put in that shadow cabinet, and we will find out in the next few days.
Well, we shall be watching that. Olivia Utley, thank you very much. Right, well, we're joined now by the head of campaigns for popular conservatism, Andrew Allison. Andrew, you've got a boy's name and a girl's name all together in the one name.
I have indeed, yes.
Could swap that round, couldn't we? So, Andrew, let's talk about this. Kemi Badenoch, she did win, but as Olivia alluded, there was a small pot of people who actually voted, and it was almost slightly sort of Brexity in its division. Do you think that the party will now finally rally behind a leader and get on with things?
Frankly, I think that he will. I think he has to. It's unite or die, really, Nana. But first of all, can I just say congratulations to Kemi? I mean, she fought a good campaign and she's won. Although it doesn't really make any difference to me that this is the fourth woman leader of the Conservative Party, the second non-white leader of the Conservative Party. I don't think it makes a huge amount of difference to many people in this country. For Labour, who's the party of identity politics, they still haven't managed that yet. So congratulations to her.
Yeah, I don't think it matters that somebody is a different colour, but it is a statement of fact. So I'm all with statements of fact, and I do think that it will be interesting how the Labour Party will approach her, especially since they have never had anything other than mostly, well, it's all white males running their parties, which is fine. But what we're pointing out is a statement of fact, but she's very talented, Kemi Badenoch, so it'll be interesting how she moves forward. Now, what about Robert Jenrick, though? Because they were very pally in terms of the fact that they will not make the same mistake that Liz Truss made by just literally getting rid of anybody who showed any opposition to her whatsoever, which didn't bode well for her. Are there any murmurings as to what Robert Jenrick might end up doing within her sort of group?
Well, that's completely up to Kemi, of course, and then to Robert and what he accepts. But I certainly hope that there is a significant role for him in the shadow cabinet. I think an obvious one, if I may say so, is Shadow Home Secretary. James Cleverly has said that he's standing down anyway, so there is a vacancy there anyway. I think that will be a good role for him. He worked in the Home Office as Immigration Minister, and that's when he effectively changed his mind about lots of things whilst working at the Home Office, so that would be good. But it's interesting, that split, Nana, 56-44. It pretty much resembles the split that we had in Popcom, not amongst the team, but amongst our supporters. Every time we did surveys, it was pretty much like that, actually in favour of Robert over Kemi, but it was a very even split between our supporters. They wanted one of these candidates. So I think, from our point of view, we're delighted that someone who gets it, who understands that the party needs to reform and we need to reform the country, has actually won the leadership.
Now, of course, it is great. I do think it is great. I think she will be a good leader. My only concern for the Conservative Party is people just don't trust them. People just don't trust them to not do what they've been doing for however long. They got nothing done. So whoever leads it, then there'll be a fight, and then they'll decide to get rid of the leader again. Then we'll be back to square one, and a lot of people have given up actually putting faith in the party that they won't revert to that.
Yes, and you put out a clip on X this morning when you spoke at a PopCon event at the Conservative Party conference, and I remember very well what you said. I mean, the Conservative Party deserved to lose the last election because the Conservative Party was not conservative. It let down so many of its traditional voters, be it on things like immigration or on balmy net zero policies and targets. And it just let its natural supporters down. And so therefore, the Conservative Party does have to become conservative again. And that's the one good thing. It would have been the same with Robert, and it certainly would be with Kemi, that we actually do have a proper Conservative as leader of the Conservative Party. Now, the policies that she adopts, I mean, is she going to advocate us pulling out of the ECHR? Is she going to scrap some of these net zero targets? All of these things are to be decided. But I would suggest to her very humbly that if she does adopt these sort of policies, proper Conservative policies, then I think the Conservative Party most certainly has a bright future ahead of it.
And of course, even right now, for the first time, the Conservative Party are ahead of the Labour Party in one of the polls anyway. That must be surely good news.
Well, yes, it's some optimism. I mean, would you have thought on the 5th of July this year, as all those results were coming in, that the Conservative Party would actually have quite an upbeat conference for starters, and Labour's conference was rather downbeat for various reasons. And would you have believed that the new leader of the Conservative Party would come in on a wave of confidence with that first poll, which I think is the first time in 3.5 years any opinion poll at all in the country has had the Conservative Party ahead of Labour. So, yeah, there's a lot to look forward to. It's just a matter of getting this right, uniting the party, everyone just getting behind the new leader, and then moving forward.
Well, and wasn't Rishi Sunak brilliant in his rebuttal of Rachel Reeves? I mean, I have never seen such fire in him as there. And he literally smashed her budget to smithereens. And I was blown away by it. I think that might have had something to do as well with part of the bounce that the Conservative Party are feeling.
Well, yes, it may well do, and I have to agree with you. It was an absolutely fantastic performance. I wish we'd seen more of that side of Rishi when he was Prime Minister. I think all of us probably think that. But that was the best response to a budget that I have ever watched from a leader of the opposition. He did. He smashed that. He eviscerated Rachel Reeves' budget. It was absolutely fantastic. So, yes, maybe that does play a part in what the polls are saying now.
Well, I'm going to play a bit of that because I was so impressed I need to see bits of it again. Have a listen.
National insurance, up. Capital gains tax, up. Inheritance tax, up. Energy taxes, up. Business rates, up. First-time buyer stamp duty, up. Pensions tax, up. They have fiddled the figures. I don't like it, Mr. Speaker.
He was brilliant, wasn't he? And I think he was right. Well, listen, Andrew, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. That is Andrew Allison. He is the head of campaigns for Popular Conservatism. Well, it's just coming up to 18 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Coming up in the Royal Roundup, Angela Levin will be here to give us the latest from behind the palace walls. But next, it's the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is Kemi Badenoch the right choice to lead the Tories? This is GB News.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, let's speak now to Sales Director at Savills for Quinta Properties, Raquel Santos, who is live for us in Portugal. Raquel, good to see you this morning. Why are all these celebrities flocking to Portugal all of a sudden?
Yeah, I guess it's just because of basically the great lifestyle that we have, security, you know. Portugal has kind of been a hidden, tucked away gem for quite a while that people didn't realize existed. And with the international flights that, you know, with the American flights coming in, it's kind of been put back on the map as a country that's worth visiting and worth investing in due to the secure investments that we offer in real estate.
Raquel, is it anything to do with tax rates? Because I think capital gains tax is, I think if it's over a certain amount, you pay half of your rate, which is 28%. Capital gains on shares and cryptocurrencies is 0. Is it anything to do with that? Because over here in the UK, big storm at the moment about millionaires apparently leaving in exodus because of the mooted increases in taxes in just a few weeks.
Yes, so obviously the alterations that are happening with the UK in terms of the tax that's being implemented on the capital gains, as you mentioned, we've definitely noticed has become a big drive, mostly on the vendor side as well, who are looking to sell because they don't want to be hit, you know, with these higher capital gains, which is close to coming into effect.
Raquel, have you noticed then millionaires, high net worth people from the UK getting in touch with you looking to relocate?
Definitely. It's for multiple reasons, obviously, the changes that are due to come into place, obviously, and Portugal just seems to be a safe option always when things do kind of change. People opt to come into Portugal because we're quite steady, we're quite stable.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you just tuned in, welcome. It is the beginning of the show, so I'm not going to have a go at you just yet. But I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. You can also stream the show live on YouTube. You can do that right now. If you don't want to be watching it on TV, it is down to you. But today at GB News, we always love to hear what you think. And every day we have our poll of the day. Today, we're asking, can Tories regain seats from Labour and reform with a new leader? Now, the results so far, 30% of you say yes. 62% of you say no, and 8% of you say don't know. Well, I'll be bringing you the final results at the end and around throughout the show. Right, and as ever, for all our latest polls, news and everything else, gbnews.com/poll. Right there, now it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is Kemi Badenoch the right choice to lead the Tory party? Now, the former Trade Secretary successfully defeated rival Robert Jenrick in the race to succeed Rishi Sunak as party leader. And in her speech, she said it's the most enormous honour to be elected to the role. But did the members make the right choice? So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is Kemi the right choice to lead the party? Well, joining me now, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also political commentator Susie Stride. Susie, welcome. Right, it's all girls. It's all girls. I've noticed that.
It's all girls.
It's all girls. Watch it.
Tory leader is all girls.
Yes. So what do you think, Lizzie Cundy, starting with you? Is she the right person?
Yes, she is. She's fierce, she's honest, she's anti-woke, and there's no messing with her. She reminds me a little bit of a Margaret Thatcher type, where, you know, she won't stand for it. And I think, you know, Keir Starmer is going to have to watch himself. I think, honestly, I think she's going to be great at Prime Minister's Question Times. I think it's going to be far more entertaining. Robert Jenrick, I like it when he talked, doing his arms and his impressions of Nigel Farage. It was sort of like, you know, he was never going to be Nigel Farage and never will be. And I think this is refreshing, and I think it's the right choice.
But she does drop in some silly comments, like the one where she talked about maternity pay. I mean, that was madness. I don't know why she said that.
No, I agree with that, and she does tend to do that at times. But I think with her, we get honesty. And she does speak from the heart, and I really like her.
Susie Stride, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's an interesting one because I'm not a Conservative. However, for me, I definitely think that Kemi is the better choice there for a number of reasons. I actually do think there's something about her where she does get voters, and I also think she's just got like a bit of a compass on certain things, which when I look at Jenrick, I just think for me he lacked conviction. I just didn't feel like there was any kind of depth to him, you know. And so, you know, what anyone else might say, I do think it is fantastic to have someone senior in government in this country, you know, that's black, and I think that's important.
Well, I think it's great. I mean, ultimately, I think it's wonderful, but the bottom line is she is judged by how she is, and that because sometimes when we get this thing, because this is the thing with this thing when people say, oh, it's great because you're black, so you're there, but sometimes people then go, oh, you're only there because you're black.
Yeah,
exactly.
So this is the thing. So highlighting the fact that she's black, it is a fact.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great fact. You know, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
But it's also irrelevant.
And that she's a woman, though it might be nice Keir Starmer might finally know what a woman is. I mean, I think it's fantastic. it, but I mean, it's in how she is as a, you know, what she does. You know, we've heard so many words and no actions from the Tory party, so we'll be looking at that. But, you know, it's going to be interesting who she's going to pick in her shadow cabinet. I mean, I've heard she's going to get a lot of new faces in. There's one, Alex Burkhardt, whether Robert will be in there as well. It will be interesting to see. But I think she's refreshing, and I think Labour are going to be very worried.
I think they will be.
Yeah, I mean, there are. The thing is, there are the, like you've already mentioned, there are some gaffes essentially that she has made, like on maternity pay, and I think, you know, that does make her, you know, in some ways an easy target in certain things. But I think just going back to, you know, what we were just saying, that yes, it can't just be because someone's a woman or someone's black. That I mean, and I think that is positive because you've got to smash these ceilings, you know. However, I think, look, I don't agree with where she comes from ideologically, but you know, she's a formidable politician, and you have to, you know, you can see she's, you know, she's good at the dispatch box. She's very, you know, she's got her opinion. She knows where she stands on things. Wherever you stand on the woke stuff, you know where she stands on that. And I think on some of that stuff, you do need someone who's going to argue from a certain corner.
She's going to be fierce.
I like that, you know.
But my one worry is she only got 56% of the vote. She has to reunite this party. Forget all this in-house fighting. This has to stop, because no one's ever going to vote for a party that's, you know, forever, you know, in fight mode. She's got to unite this party and be true Conservative.
I'll be honest, I kind of thought that Robert Jenrick would be the better leader. I preferred him being more decisive on things like the ECHR. I preferred that, but I don't know necessarily whether that is the answer, because every time we leave these conventions, we then end up in the same place of people arguing about the bits and pieces that you should do and how things should be interpreted. So, no.
I think my thing on him, and I've said this before, is that, you know, he was involved in that kind of conversation with the donor, you know, which was very dodgy, and in the end he resigned over it. And I just think anyone who's got that side of them, I don't want them anywhere.
Well, that's everyone, isn't it?
But
you'd end up losing the entire Labour Party.
There's nothing to show that she's ever been involved in anything like that.
You know, your Prime Minister took more freebies than anyone else. Let's be honest.
That's another debate, and very different to what Jenrick did. You know, what Jenrick did was he actually, you know, he had a conversation with a Conservative donor, and then like helped him get this, you know, this planning through. And you know, it was even the right-wing newspapers criticised him over that. But for me, that's a judgment call where I'm like, no, I don't want, and I wouldn't give that criticism to Kemi, because there's no evidence she's ever done anything like that. So I think for me, you know, when it comes to kind of conviction and you know, is her heart in the right place, whether I agree with her ideologically, her any day over Jenrick.
Well, I think they all have got some tarnish on them, I'm afraid. And look at our Prime Minister. He was saying, I mean, when he lies, when his lips move. I mean, I can't believe it. Taxing the working people. He's having to tax everyone. Is getting hit by this, you know, horror show of a budget. But let's just be honest about talking about Robert Jenrick. The thing for me is that he was, you know, EU, then he changed, he flip-flopped a bit, and I'd wondered whether he was being true in what he was saying.
Well, maybe he just changed his mind.
You're allowed to change your mind,
exactly.
But I was wondering whether he was just being true of what he really felt. I think Kemi is honest.
I've had a nice chat with both of them, and I've met them both and had nice little pictures with them all. They're both very nice.
Yeah.
But for me, I would have rather have gone with Robert Jenrick. But then I heard Kemi speak on GBNews.
Yeah.
And then I sort of thought, oh, she's really good as well.
So exactly.
It was very difficult to then determine which one of those I would choose.
But
so I'm happy with either.
The funny thing about the Tory party is if they don't do well, they get rid of them, because with Labour, we just stick with them to the end. But obviously what you see with the Conservatives is if they do not perform, I mean, you can see it there, those 5 leaders in quick succession.
That's what cost them.
Well, yes, but I'm just saying they've got that ruthless edge. But just to say on the working people thing, all I would say about that budget, what anyone will say is working people, I mean, I'm from East London, completely working class background, you know, schools are going to get the funding, you know, like there's so much that is positive.
Are you having a laugh?
I know you guys aren't going to agree with me.
I am not at all. What they've done to the private schools,
we're going to talk about the budget,
is shocking and shambolic, and this is a soul-destroying budget.
But I don't think generally. I genuinely don't think. So I go to my kids' local school, and the teachers aren't saying that. The teachers are like, "We're going to get the funding we didn't have for 10 years."
No, they're not.
Do you know what I mean?
No, they're not.
But you talk to people in the NHS, my friends that are doctors and nurses. nurses. They're saying we're going to get the support we've not had.
They're not.
But
They're
we-
not.
there are
Can I
people
just
that-
ask you? I've got a question for you,
you've got to
Susie.
listen to people on the ground.
Susie, I've got a question
Yes.
for you. OK, so you talked about the NHS. I had to revisit the figures to make sure I got this right. But do you know how much it costs to run the NHS for one day?
I don't. Tell me.
About 184 million. Do you know how many times 1.4 or 1.5 billion goes into 184 million? Take a guess.
No, I'm going to be honest with you. Maths is definitely not. I got an A at GCSE.
So about 8 times. So the 1.5 billion funding that's supposed to help everything, that will be 8 days.
But the thing is, you've got to look at the facts. The facts
that is a fact.
The facts are this, that waiting times went up. Waiting times went up. People that had cancer waited for long. You've got to look at the facts.
They said reform. They said reform. They're just plowing a load of money into another
pre-COVID.
But
you know what?
One of you at a time, sorry, because it doesn't work on radio.
When we listen to doctors and you hear what doctors and nurses are saying,
I'll tell you what they're saying.
Under those 10 years, but you look at the stats, people, 200 and...
Susie, I want to give Lizzie a moment to respond.
I'll tell you what they're saying. My friend is a nurse, and it's all mismanaged. There are too many...
There is mismanagement.
And they said, did they not? Your party said they were going to reform. Well, what are they actually going to do? What are they going to do? All words, no action, as usual. They lied yet again.
All right, no, that's enough. Thank you. That's enough. Right, come on, we'll carry on with this in just a moment. You're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News Live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, our Great British Debate, I'm asking, is the value for money czar value for money? First, let's get your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories. Well, Kemi Badenoch has vowed to tell the truth and stand up for our principles as she was elected the new leader of the Conservative Party. Badenoch defeated Robert Jenrick in a ballot of party members. She's the 4th female leader and the first ever black leader of the party. In her acceptance speech, she said the Tories have to be honest about the fact they made mistakes and they let standards slip. She also praised the outgoing leader Rishi Sunak for getting the party through a tough time.
It is the most enormous honour to be elected to this role, to lead the party that I love, the party that has given me so much. I hope that I will be able to repay that debt. I also want to thank Rishi. No one could have worked harder in such difficult times. Rishi, thank you for everything you did. We all wish you and your wonderful family the very best for the future.
In other news, a 13-year-old girl who was stabbed yesterday morning was known to her attackers, according to Humberside Police. 6 teenagers have been arrested after the girl was found with multiple stab wounds at the side of a major road in East Yorkshire. Police say she was found on the A63 in Hessel with life-threatening injuries, including lacerations to her neck, abdomen, chest and back. 4 boys and 2 girls aged between 14 and 17 were arrested in a nearby wooded area and are being questioned on suspicion of attempted murder. The victim remains in hospital in a critical condition. And the deadliest flash floods in Spain's modern history have killed at least 211 people and dozens still unaccounted for 4 days after torrential rains swept through the eastern region of Valencia. Teams continue to search for bodies after flash flooding swept through large areas of the country. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has ordered the largest peacetime troop deployment to deal with the aftermath, with 5,000 being drafted in to help. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More news from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Grey skies persisting over the next few days, despite high pressure in charge, keeping things relatively calm for us. There is a lot of cloud stuck underneath this, but light winds for many of us at least to give that calm feel of things. As you head out this evening, perhaps for any bonfire night celebrations, though, it should stay largely dry. I can't rule out the odd spot of drizzle, though, where the cloud is thick enough, particularly around any higher ground sites where it certainly will be quite misty and murky in places. Generally, the best of any clearer spells overnight is going to be for the far northeast of Scotland, and here we could could see temperatures dropping down a bit, maybe even some patchy frost in rural areas, but elsewhere it's going to be a mild night underneath that cloud. Temperatures generally around 10 degrees Celsius as we start off on Sunday morning. And as we head throughout the day, well, it's quite a homogeneous story for many of us, with the clear spells mainly affecting northeastern areas of Scotland. So a bit of sunshine here. Quite breezy along the northern coast of Scotland to begin with. They'll generally ease off as we head into the latter stages of the night. But for Northern Ireland, England and Wales, look at that widespread cloud across many areas. There is perhaps the potential as we head into the afternoon of a few brighter, sunnier spells to develop, maybe a bit more so than we have seen over recent days. But certainly the theme of the day is going to be fairly grey skies across the board. A little bit of a breeze in the southwest, but as I said, for many of us it is going to be relatively light winds overall. Temperatures perhaps are down by a degree or so compared to today, so we'll see around 12-13 degrees Celsius as the top temperatures for many of us. And that theme really continues as we head into the end of the weekend as well. Sunday evening is once again looking largely cloudy, perhaps a few fog patches developing in places, but the best of the clearer skies across the far north of Scotland. And it's likely to stay that way over the forthcoming week as well. High pressure remains in charge with a lot of cloud around. But as we head towards Wednesday, a slight shift in our wind direction should bring us something a little bit milder.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home? Talking about? Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy. Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
On Tuesday night, stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, Tuesday night from 11.
Only on GB News.
Well, welcome back. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. Now keep your thoughts coming. gbnews.com/your say. I will read those out throughout the show. It's just coming up to 37 minutes after 3 o'clock, and it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is the value for money, Tsar, value for money? The Chancellor announced in the budget that David Goldson will take up the position of chair of the new Office for Value for Money, saying that Mr Goldstein would help us realise the benefits from every pound of public spending. But he is expected to work a monthly average of 1 day a week, with a role equating to an annual salary of just under £50,000, which works out about £950 a day. He also presided over some projects that had massive overspends, which includes the Olympics and HS2. So, is the value for money, so value for money? Well, let's see what my panel make of that. Joining me, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also political commentator Susie Stride. Susie Stride, I'm starting with you.
Yes.
Is he value for money?
I mean, it's a huge amount of money, isn't it?
Isn't it?
I mean, you know, look, I am all for, you know, people that, you know, play these roles and have good experience over long periods of time, you know, being paid, you know, good money for their work. And obviously you see that often with, like, CEOs and whatnot. But I just think this is a lot of money. And I think at a time when we're talking, you know, a government role where you are, you know, you're trying to make savings and, you know, you've got, you know, savings being made in very difficult places, I just don't think it looks good. So, you know, I mean, look, when you look at the actual cost over the whole year, £50,000, that actually is half the amount. Because I'm just looking at some of the other...
If it's 1 day a week, I mean, that's
well, exactly, so it's 12 days a year. For me...
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. It is a lot of money.
It's not 12 days a year, is it?
What, 1 day a month? Yeah. So that's 12 days...
No, it's 1 day a week.
Oh, it's 1 day a week?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. But I was just looking at some of the equivalents, you know, under the last government, and actually there were equivalents for people in those advisory roles.
Yeah, but that's still a waste of money. I mean, they shouldn't have been paying that for any of them.
Look, my stance on these things is, look, you need to pay people well, and you need to pay people that have got this kind of experience and taken on levels of responsibility. But I think this is too much. I think it's too much money.
All right, well, listen, Mr Goldstone, he previously oversaw delivery of the London Olympics, where costs increased to 9.35 billion. They were initially meant to be 2.45 billion, so why you've got him on there. And also HS2 as well, which had loads of overruns. Lizzie Kennedy.
David Goldstein, even his name sounds rich, doesn't it? Well, his job is actually to root out waste, and this is a total waste of money. I'd like Keir Starmer to ask the pensioners what they think of this when he's taken their, fuel allowance off them, yet he's able to pay this man this amount of money. I think it's a disgrace. I think it's absolutely out of order, and I think it just sums up what this Labour Party is, because they're not what they stand for, are they? They're hypocrites. And as we said, he served for many years on the HS2. What a disaster that was. I mean, seriously, they need to have a good look at themselves. Honestly, I just really don't think they have a clue. They don't know what they're doing, do they?
But the Labour Party would argue that they're doing this because that is the going rate. So, although I don't know who gets £950 a day, I'm not sure. I've not met anyone that gets that sort of money.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't hang out with these people, so I have no idea what the going rate is. I think I wouldn't make it... The reason why I wouldn't make it party political is because if you dig up what I'm literally just Googling the Tories, and there is no difference. So I think it's very difficult to make
they're not in power
I mean, it's very different. Yes, but what I'm saying is, when you look at...
But they said they weren't going to do all this.
For example, if you look at special advisors, there is a rate that they have paid special advisors for the last 15 years.
Well, that's a waste of money.
And that hasn't changed that much. It may well be. It may well be. Look, as I say, I don't agree with this amount of money being paid to someone. But what is interesting is part of his responsibility is about rooting out
the
money that was wasted in COVID contracts, which I think is a national scandal.
But
so
why him?
For me, look, do I agree with this amount being paid? No. But what I am happy about is that we are going to go after those people that lined their
all right, Susie,
during a crisis.
Susie. But why him? You've just got to look at the failure that he's presided over, failure after failure after failure. So why him?
Susie's track record is diabolical. It really, really is. And for Labour to pay this amount of money on one day a week, what's he going to do in that one day of the week? Is he actually going to do to earn that sort of money? And it's a total... It's just a hypocrisy. It's a total hypocritical Labour government that we have, and this just smacks of jobs for the boys to me.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm just going to come back on that. Look, I mean, as I say, in some way, we are in agreement that the amount of money is too much. What I'm not in agreement on is Labour hypocritical. I don't agree with that, because I just think, look, things like, for example, I can't remember who it was, but the woman that was made a Conservative peer, and they gave her all these COVID contracts, and then it was, a complete scandal. Things like that, for me, are appallingly hypocritical, cost the taxpayer huge amounts of money, and I'm like, well, we need to go after that. However, I'm agreeing with you. This is a huge amount of money, and I don't agree with it. But what I'm saying is, I don't think throwing mud at the Labour Party on this, because I'm just like, well,
they've done it.
Actually, there's something that's going wrong on a bigger picture here.
You mean Michelle Mone?
Yes,
Michelle Mone, yes, and she deserved everything she got. I knew Michelle Mone, but I have to say, look at what they've done. Look at what they gave Sue Gray. She was getting more than the actual Prime Minister. They're a joke. They're not what they are. They don't do what they say.
Hold on.
Yeah.
They're supposed to stand for this party, holier than thou. They're going to do the right thing for the... there's Keir Starmer in his freebie suits pretending to be this working-class hero. He's not, is he? He's a hypocrite. Look, he's paying this guy £950 a day.
The reason why I don't agree with you on that is because I look at Keir Starmer, and obviously, look, you guys aren't going to agree with me on this, but I look at Keir Starmer and I'm like, we're dealing with the water companies because they've just pumped loads of sewage, into our rivers. They're investing in schools. They're investing in the NHS. For me, these are things that I care about. These are things that working people care about. So, whether or not you call him a working-class hero, for me, he's doing what hasn't happened for 15 years.
Well, he's saying he's going to do that, but the repercussions of lots of the things that they're talking about are actually very impactful, and they impact working people very negatively, like the private schools that you pointed out, which isn't going to raise the £1.6 billion they want, which will end up with those people filtering into the state school system, and it will end up with 0.3 of a teacher per every school. I mean, that's ridiculous. It doesn't even
They gave the most historic, honestly, dishonest election because they promised all those things and pledges, and they went against it.
All right, listen, we're going to come back to that.
Do you think the Tory record's good? Because the Tory...
No,
we're talking about Labour.
Yeah, but that's it. No, but the thing is you do it within context.
No, that is
of
the
what
context.
We're up against.
No.
And we're up against the party that destroyed the NHS,
I'm not going to let that go.
destroyed schools.
No, I'm not going to let that go. You know why? Because when the Tory party took up office, the Labour Party left them a little note telling them there was no money left and everything was decimated. And everything was, which was under Gordon Brown. It was under Gordon Brown and Tony Blair, and they all say it's got nothing to do with them, but they would have taken credit had it gone well. So let's be honest.
Global economic crisis.
It was not. There was an element of government activity that caused part of that. No, you cannot absorb...
It literally was a global economic crisis.
No, I was there.
Because otherwise it would have only been England that struggled, but every single country...
I have to move on, Susie.
Every single country struggled.
Susie, stop talking.
OK.
Thank you. Right,
we just have to disagree.
No, we can disagree, but I've got to move on to the Royal Roundup because Angela Levin will break my eyes if I don't get her on. And she gets a full 7 minutes. I'm scared of her. Yes, there's always something going on in the royal household, and Angela Levin is here next.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Serving some of the most talked about food in Chelsea, executive head chef of Number 50 Cheney, Ian Smith, has created a range of menus with a hint of the homeland, using the finest British ingredients sourced by trusted suppliers. Ian Smith was head chef at Jason Atherton's Social Eating House and spent time in the kitchens of the Galvin brothers. Ian joins me now to tell more of the story. Tell me about Number 50 Cheney.
Yes, so we are a beautiful restaurant down in a corner of Chelsea on the embankment with an amazing team. And we are really pride ourselves on, being an affordable luxury that people, really are wanting to return to week in, week out.
What's the view from your restaurant?
We can see the embankment, the Thames, and Albert Bridge, which is very nice.
Very nice.
Actually lit up. Very romantic.
And tell me a little bit about your philosophy. I was talking there about having a touch of the homeland, British food, seasonal food.
Yes. Yeah, I think, for me, great cooking is, with simplicity on finest ingredients, cooked with simplicity, and ultimately, there to be enjoyed through... Yeah, sorry.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to say, it starts as a young person's business. You went into it very young, didn't you? 15?
Yes. Yeah, so I was 15. I sat in my parents' bedroom, called the Ritz, the Dorchester and Claridge's, and very luckily, a man on the end of the phone, 21 years ago, sent me on to a college course called the Specialised Chef Scholarship. 3 days later, I had a Ritz stamp letter through the post, and off me and my parents went, and luckily I got on the course.
And how old were you when you got your first responsibility, would you say?
I think the biggest responsibility in my career is today. Leading Number 50 Cheney.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, this is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. Now, there's always something going on in the royal household, and this week has been no different. And every Saturday, I love to give you a rundown, and who better to do so than royal biographer Angela Levin. Angela, let's get stuck in. Shall we start with Prince Charles? He's cutting off Andrew's money?
Yes, that's right. Robert Hardman, a good friend of mine, he'd written a book on Charles III, and this is several chapters in it. It's just been reproduced. And King Charles did say to Andrew that on the 1st of November, he's not going to give him £1 million a month to help him keep going, and he's not paying something in seven figures for all the protection officers for him. He's got to be on his own because he's not a royal now, he's not a working royal, and also he's not looking after the building. They live in a huge mansion, he with an ex-wife, and it's got 30 bedrooms, and it's in a terrible state. And Andrew took no notice. Absolutely no notice. They have never got on, really. And it's happened now. So we'll have to see what he will do. He has got a bit of money from the late Queen, his mother, but we will see. And he's actually gone through with it. You know, you can threaten people, but you don't go through it.
Well, he obviously didn't think that would happen.
No, he didn't. He
tried to get him out of Royal Lodge, isn't it?
Yes. But he would now have to go somewhere else. And but Catherine and William don't want it. His girls don't want it. He doesn't want it. Camilla doesn't want it. So I don't know what they're going to do with it, but they're certainly going to do something. It will need quite a lot of rebuilding.
Well, maybe William will put homeless people in there because he's currently busy on a project in that, isn't he?
He's very busy on this, and he's got two things. One is the people who haven't got a home. It's called Howard's, and he's been there and he washes up and he makes food, and people have criticised him a lot. And someone said to him, what do you feel about all the criticism? They don't believe you can do anything like this. And he said, if I listened to all of it, I wouldn't get anywhere. I'd have to stay with you all day. But I find it charges me to do more and to do it more better. And I think that's very nice. Of course, he's off to the Earthshot Prize in a day or two. And
is that in Cape Town?
Yes, in Cape Town. And it's actually, he's got a lot of younger people. He's got models going with him because he knows that will get the TV there, beautiful women. And he's doing really well. He's trying very, very hard. We get to Harry. And this is very interesting. You'll be pleased to hear they're not going to live in Portugal. They're not going to get a house in Portugal and live in it. This is the beginning of a property portfolio.
Oh, it's even worse.
They might not buy more than one place in Portugal, but they are going to spend a lot of their Netflix money on buying building, but they are actually going to stay in Montecico, which I thought they would do, actually. It didn't make any sense to me for them to go there. There we are. But Harry also is very worried because, or not so worried, that Eric Trump, Donald's son, thinks that they've got no interest. And he made a speech which said, I don't care about their visa, couldn't care less because no one's interested in them, nothing's going to happen. So if that's what's going to happen, it's awful to be called nobody cares about you, don't mean anything, you haven't got anywhere, you're not global like you want to be, and you would just, you know, who cares? But the... it's Heritage Foundation, which originally said they want to know and to see the paperwork. They're still after that. They're demanding that because he hasn't actually shown that. The judge won't do it. But I'm sure they'll get it in the end. And so that's...
And what about the other rumour that's going on with regard to Harry and Meghan?
Well, that they're not going to be together. But
well, potentially. I thought there was some sort of rumour.
Into Montecico, it's a magazine where a lot of A1 celebrities read it, and they said that they think it's absolutely at the end. And we're waiting to see. I mean, neither of them are together for a very long time. You don't see them with their children at all, and that they are going to break up. But I think for Harry, who was actually shouting at his father, I won't allow you to talk like that to Meghan, I won't let you have that attitude to Meghan, and being really unkind, because Charles is not actually a very rude person, particularly not to his sons who he loves. And we'll have to wait and see. But I think it's for Harry to say, I've made a big mistake, is a very hard thing to do.
Well, maybe he doesn't think he has. Maybe the rumour, there's no substance to the rumour at all.
Yes, but apparently this magazine in Montesico takes great care that it gets things right, but we'll have to wait and see. But I don't think anyone would be surprised, actually.
Yeah, nobody, I mean, to be honest, nobody really wants to see the end of someone's marriage, to be honest.
Well,
It's a shame they spend so much time whinging, though.
If, you know, if they've got there, people say there's no children there, but, I mean, it's also very difficult. The small children, they don't understand it, and it can be difficult. And if it's a breakup that is unpleasant, then the children are very affected. But just about the Queen and the King,
We've
they
got about
stopped
5
off
seconds.
on their way back
5 seconds.
to go to a very nice spa, and they were very, very happy because it broke the plane journey up, and they came back very refreshed.
Lovely. All right, Angela Levin, you're a star. Next, my niggle on the newly elected Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch, being the first ever black leader. Who cares? Now, it's the weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Grey skies persisting over the next few days. Despite high pressure in charge, keeping things relatively calm for us, there is a lot of cloud stuck underneath this, but light winds for many of us at least to give that calm feel of things. As you head out this evening, perhaps for any bonfire night celebrations, though, it should stay largely dry. I can't rule out the odd spot of drizzle, though, where the cloud is thick enough, particularly around any higher ground sites where it certainly will be quite misty and murky in places. Generally, the best of any clearer spells overnight is going to be for the far northeast of Scotland, and here we could see temperatures dropping down a bit, maybe even some patchy frost in rural areas, but elsewhere it's going to be a mild night underneath that cloud. Temperatures generally around 10 degrees Celsius as we start off on Sunday morning. And as we head throughout the day, well, it's quite a homogeneous story for many of us, with the clear spells mainly affecting northeastern areas of Scotland, so a bit of sunshine here. Quite breezy along northern coast of Scotland to begin with. They'll generally ease off as we head into the latter stages of the night. But for Northern Ireland, England and Wales, look at that widespread cloud across many areas. There is perhaps the potential as we head into the afternoon of a few brighter, sunnier spells to develop, maybe a bit more so than we have seen over recent days, but certainly the theme of the day is going to be fairly grey skies across the board. A little bit of a breeze in the southwest, but as I said, for many of us it is going to be relatively light winds overall. Temperatures perhaps are down by a degree or so compared to today, so we'll see around 12, 13 degrees Celsius as the top temperatures for many of us. And that theme really continues as we head into the end of the weekend as well. Sunday evening is once again looking largely cloudy, perhaps a few fog patches developing in places, with the best of the clearer skies across the far north of Scotland. And it's likely to stay that way over the forthcoming week as well. High pressure remains in charge with a lot of cloud around. But as we head towards Wednesday, a slight shift in our wind direction should bring us something a little bit milder.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're giving you the chance to win everything you need to celebrate the festivities. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
On Tuesday night, stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, Tuesday night from 11.
Only on GB News.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, hello and welcome to GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of those big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the next 3 hours, political commentator Susie Stride and also broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. Coming up, is Kemi Badenoch the right person to lead the Tory party? She pipped Robert Jenrick to the post. I've got a pull up on X asking you that question. Is Kemi Badenoch the right person to lead the party? In difficult conversations as the Labour Party double down on their VAT raid on private schools and independent schools prepare to sue the government, I'll be joined by the spokesperson from Education and Not Taxation. And of course, farmers are up in arms over the proposed changes to inheritance tax, which could see many family farms not being passed down. Is Elon Musk right? Are the Labour Party at risk of destroying UK food security with these plans? But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you and good afternoon. The top stories. Well, Kemi Badenoch has vowed to tell the truth and stand up for our principles as she was elected the new leader of the Conservative Party today. Badenoch defeated Robert Jenrick in a ballot of party members. She's the fourth female leader and the first ever black leader of the party. In her acceptance speech, she said the Tories have to be honest about the fact they made mistakes and they let standards slip. She also praised the outgoing leader Rishi Sunak for getting the party through a tough time.
It is the most enormous honour to be elected to this role, to lead the party that I love, the party that has given me so much. I hope that I will be able to repay that debt. I also want to thank Rishi. No one could have worked harder in such difficult times. Rishi, thank you for everything you did. We all wish you and your wonderful family the very best for the future.
Now, while the Prime Minister has congratulated the new Tory leader, the Labour Party chair Ellie Reeves says she's worried about the policies that Kemi Badenoch would advocate as leader of the opposition. Ms Reeves criticised the Conservatives for dragging out the leadership contest and not taking accountability, she said, for their time in government.
You know, we've spent the last 4 months with the Conservatives, rather than take any kind of responsibility for the mess that they've left the country in after 14 years of Conservative government, rather than take responsibility, they've just been talking to each other with more sort of division and chaos and infighting as this leadership election has played out.
In other news, a 13-year-old girl who was stabbed yesterday morning was known to her attackers, according to Humberside Police. 6 teenagers have been arrested after the girl was found with multiple stab wounds at the side of a major road in East Yorkshire. Police say she was found on the A63 in Hessle with life-threatening injuries, including lacerations to her neck, abdomen, chest and back. 4 boys and 2 girls aged between 14 and 17 were arrested in a nearby wooded area and are being questioned on suspicion of attempted murder. The victim remains in hospital in a critical condition. Now, more than 5,000 migrants arrived in the UK after crossing the Channel in October, making it the busiest month of the year so far. According to Home Office figures, 230 people made the journey in 5 boats on Thursday, which brings the total number of arrivals recorded last month to 5,417. It comes after the 10th death this month was recorded on Wednesday, with the total number of people who have died while trying to cross the Channel this year now standing at 50. The deadliest flash floods in Spain's modern history have killed at least 211 people and dozens still unaccounted for 4 days after torrential rains swept the eastern region of Valencia. Teams continue to search for bodies after that flash flooding swept through large areas of the country. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has ordered the largest peacetime troop deployment to deal with the aftermath, with 5,000 being drafted in to help. Elsewhere, the drug watchdog has warned it's received up to 10 reports of deaths linked to weight loss jabs such as Ozempic. Cases of serious reactions to the drug, including nausea and vomiting, are now in the thousands. This comes as the General Pharmaceutical Council announced plans for additional safeguards to ensure online pharmacies are properly checking patient information. Former Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has led the tributes to incredibly kind comedian Janey Godley after she's died at the age of 63. The 54-year-old politician said Godley was a force of nature and one of the funniest people I've ever known in a post on X, which featured pictures of the pair together. The Scottish comedian died after receiving palliative treatment for terminal cancer. And Covent Garden's famous Christmas tree has been hand-picked and freshly harvested ahead of this year's festive season. For the 15th consecutive year, the 55-foot Norwegian spruce Christmas tree was chosen from Woods Farm, a 200-acre festive forest near Solihull in the West Midlands. While Woods Farm also supplies festive trees to other notable locations such as Downing Street and Windsor Castle. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More news from me in half an hour.
Good afternoon. It is fast approaching 7 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Oh dear, what are the woke left going to do now?
Badenoch, 53,806 votes, and Robert Jenrick, 41,388.
The Conservatives, who are seen as a right-wing party, have elected their 4th female leader, and she's black, Kemi Badenoch. Now, I don't care that Kemi Badenoch is black. I agree her colour is completely irrelevant, but it is simply a statement of fact. And it's also a fact that whilst those who spout diversity and inclusion are absolutely seen as on the left, i.e. the Labour Party, the left have never either had a female leader, although under his definition a man would probably count, and as for a black female, the main ones on their benches are at the back, and one of them was suspended for racism. The irony. Even their front bench are lacking in any real diversity. And again, I would rather people ignored colour, but if you're going to bang on about it, you better make sure that you're diverse. Kemi is a brilliant politician. She's forthright and direct. She calls it as she sees it, and well done to those who voted her in, the majority white, ignoring her colour and looking at what she could bring to the table. And in their eyes, her qualities were ones which they believe will unite the party and guide them to a victory in the next general election. Rishi Sunak, again, another historical first, who stepped down today after brilliantly skewering Rachel Reeves's budget, said that he was proud to be the first Asian PM, but said that it wasn't a big deal.
So I'm proud to have been the first British Asian Prime Minister, but I was even prouder that it was not that big a deal.
Yeah. I agree. It's not. Again, it's just a statement of fact. The response to Kemi has been incredibly positive. Boris Johnson tweeted, "Congratulations to Kemi on her outstanding victory. She brings a much-needed zip and zap to the Conservative Party. This sleaze-ridden Labour government have no ideas or agenda beyond the old tax and spend socialism. They are far more vulnerable than the parliamentary maths might suggest. Kemi has exactly the right courage and clarity to expose Keir Starmer's failings." Now, Kemi's appointment should, first of all, break the narrative that black people are a homogenous, oppressed group who all think the same thing and are victims, a narrative which has been peddled by many in the established media for years, a narrative that I am sick of and only results in my success being seen as only because I'm black. What Kemi's victory does is show that there is nothing that cannot be achieved, irrespective of what colour you are, and there are no excuses. Yes, racism exists, but here in the UK, it is down to you as an individual to agree to be shackled by it. Well done to Kemi. I can't wait to hear her get up against Keir Starmer in PMQs. I can't wait to hear her hold this disastrous Labour government to account. But before we get stuck into the debates, here's what else is coming up today. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, will Labour kill off British farming? Even Elon Musk has got involved in the debate over Rees's inheritance tax changes, telling Labour to leave farmers alone. I'll be joined in the studio by the head of campaigns at the Taxpayers Alliance, Elliot Keck, who'll break down what this budget really means for the taxpayer. All of that on the way. As ever, send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. All right, let's get started. I'm joined in the studio by the Director of Popular Conservatism, Mark Littlewood. Mark, what did you make of Kemi's victory?
Well, I actually voted for Robert, but it was a difficult choice. I thought that the MPs whittled it down to two superb candidates. Keir Starmer's not going to know what's hit him over the dispatch box next week. We saw a brilliant Rishi Sunak in his budget response, a sort of demob happy Rishi Sunak.
He was fantastic.
It's amazing, isn't it? When you unburden politicians of office, suddenly they perform twice as well. She's going to be really punchy at the dispatch box. She's got an immediate task to bring the party together, but I don't think that will be particularly difficult, actually. There were differences of emphasis between herself and Robert Jenrick. Robert Jenrick was much more specific on policy. She had more of the vision thing, which she's going to have to slowly fill out with policy. But she's got to bring the party together. That's the first key step. Shouldn't be awkward. She's got to sock it to the Labour Party. Then she's got to develop quite a programme for government, because despite the thrashing on July the 4th, the shellacking that the Conservative Party received, there is every chance that they could be back in government in one go, and that means a thoroughly worked-out policy programme. Not today, not tomorrow, not even this year, but over the next 18 months. And then the big elephant in the room is what you do about reform and Farage. Can you win back a good chunk of the vote who disappeared in that direction? So quite an agenda for her to get her teeth into. But if she can pull that off, she's not just the new leader of the Conservative Party, she's probably the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Well, the polls are suggesting that the Conservative Party are ahead as well, ahead of Labour already. And this was even before we knew who was leading the party. So that suggests that either or, people would still...
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, the poll, I mean, it shows how far we in the Conservative Party have fallen, where we're punching the air that we're 1% ahead and on 29% of the vote. But Labour's honeymoon period was just hours or days. And usually when a government gets into trouble, I'm not saying there's no coming back, but it tends to be you just keep sliding. So the Conservatives can be pretty optimistic going forward. And as I say, after the thrashing in the July election, you would have thought it would have been months of Labour Party politicians walking around on cloud nine, whilst Conservatives were in clouds of despair. But I think Kemi's victory, the nature of the campaign, means that Tories can see a way back to power in one attempt. Not easy, cannot be taken for granted, high mountain to climb. But if we actually start to unravel the leftism that has racked Britain for the last quarter of a century, frankly, some of it under the last Conservative administration, then I think this can be won back. So big challenge, but huge opportunity for Kemi.
But if the Labour Party carry on with this attack on farmers, attack on pensioners, attack on working personnel, however they want to define it, I mean, that was a nonsensical farce. If they carry on, I think the Conservatives could literally... Do you think they could play the same tactic that Keir Starmer did, just sit back and let them just slide themselves out of power?
Well, you know, they could, but I rather hope they don't, Nana, because... Keir Starmer just stood to one side, issued various statements of word salad, hoped that the incumbent government would become so unpopular that he'd sort of just come into power on a negative vote. Then turns out you haven't really worked out what to do. The Labour Party's prescription just seems to be that the Tories didn't tax enough, spend enough, borrow enough or regulate enough. Now, I'd actually say I think the Conservatives did rather too much of all of those things, but they're doubling down on what I think the Conservatives got wrong in the last administration. I really think that the Conservatives have got to think through, under Kemi's new leadership, a real positive agenda for what would change. So, sure, in the coming weeks and the coming months, it's mainly holding the government to account. Kemi actually just said that in her speech. You've got to be the case for the opposition against the government. But as time rolls on, I'd like to see a pretty clear policy agenda, and I think there's an awful lot in Britain that needs to be completely reset. We're governed by quangos and bureaucracy, we're taxed to death, and I actually think a pretty radical agenda is probably the one to win, rather than a play it safe and hope Labour implodes.
Well, if they stick to being Conservative, then they've got every chance of winning. What are your views on the farmers and the attack on inheritance tax?
Yeah, it's extraordinary, really. I mean, what seems to be particularly pernicious about it is Labour are giving the impression that they have identified each and every cohort of voters who don't vote Labour, be this pensioners or people who send their kids to private school or farmers, and the tax burdens being shuffled onto them. And what's particularly worrying about this is a good number of farms are on the verge of viability, right? And if you impose this inheritance tax and you have to basically sell off 20% of what you inherit because you haven't got the liquid assets to pay the bill, you become even less viable. So it's not just a higher tax that all people complain about, is potentially an existential tax for British farming. And I'm afraid I'm expecting to see more and more of the sort of policy we saw in Rachel Reid's budget as we go on. They are going to try and hoover up yet more cash from the private sector to pay out for the relatively unproductive public sector, where their political allies are, where their client vote is. And in consequence, the overall economic pie, the size of the economy, will be a lot smaller than it should otherwise be.
And I notice a lot of the constituencies where these farms are on are Tory constituencies, aren't they? Yeah. What a surprise. Mark Littlewood, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. Really good to talk to you. Well, joining me now is the former Labour spokesperson, James Matthewson. James, welcome to the programme. Thank you very much for joining me. So your thoughts, first of all, on Kemi Badenoch leading the Conservative Party. Is this a good thing, in your view?
It depends who you ask if it's good for, Nana, because there's different people, obviously, in our country will have a different response to this. I think Keir Starmer's comment and congratulations to Kemi is important. I know you might not agree with this, but I do think these milestones are important of, showing us exactly where we are as a country and who can achieve what. Kemi's story is a very impressive one. She's a very impressive person, and she's clearly a very intelligent individual. And to see that she's been given the opportunity to lead the party that represents her politics is important. However, and you always know there's going to be a however when it comes to me, because I don't agree with much about what Kemi Badenoch says about anything, really. I do think it shows that the Conservative Party has kind of drunk its own Kool-Aid. It believes its narrative internally, and it believes the narrative that the culture wars are the thing to get them out of the situation they've been in. I just don't agree with that at all, and I think it's actually quite a concern. I think there will be people today who are concerned. There'll be people who are celebrating Kemi's win, absolutely, in the Conservative Party, but there will be people in this country who are concerned about her victory, given the things she's said about different groups and quite a wide range of groups of people in this country.
Well, yeah, I would actually admit that sometimes Kemi does say things that you sort of think, why are you saying that? But then they're all guilty of that, and you can't be perfect all the time. But what about the fact that she's the first black female? Does that have any impact on you? The Labour Party haven't even had a female leader, let alone one of colour.
Yeah, it's important. It is an important thing, absolutely. And not just that, but I think the more important thing than just Kemi's identity as a black woman is her story as an immigrant, a first-generation immigrant. You know, her parents came to the UK, had her in a hospital in London, and then went back to Nigeria. So she was raised in Nigeria and then came back here when she was 16. So that's a pretty impressive turnaround for somebody who's a first-generation immigrant. And so the story is impressive. And it's important, as I say. However, to me, what's more important about politicians is what comes out of their mouth, what they believe.
That is true, but the Labour Party stand on a plinth of diversity and inclusion and all that kind of thing. And, you know, the Labour Party claim to be the party of the working people and all of that. But yet, throughout its entire history, there hasn't been a woman or anyone of any other ethnicity.
There hasn't, and there should have been. Should have been. There's been so many women in the Labour Party who've been incredibly capable of taking up that mantle. You think about people like Harriet Harman, you know, who an entire generation have passed by in the Labour Party. So it's right. You're absolutely right on that point. Somebody like Angela Rayner being in the position she's in now is vitally important as well because of Angela's background, Angela's story, the difficulties and the challenges she's faced, not just as a woman, but a working class woman. So it will be interesting to see these characters at the dispatch box now as we talk about that story. But as I say, the things Kemi's said, I would be remiss if I didn't say that I'm highly concerned about them.
Well, what about the things Angela Rayner said, like Banana Republic, Etonian, Tory scum? I mean, I don't think Kemi said anything that bad. So what about Angela Rayner?
Things I've said and things I've agreed with. So I can't comment.
So you would agree that the Etonian, Republic, or whatever it was, homophobic scum? I mean, there's the words that came out of her mouth.
The homophobic
Banana Republic and all that sort of thing. I mean,
yeah, the homophobic Etonians who were making homophobic comments at the time, I believe, are scum for saying that. Yeah, absolutely.
No, but Angela Rayner made those comments about people, about the Tory party, and you were saying that about Kemi Badenoch and things that come out of her mouth. So I'm just alluding to the fact that that came out of Angela Rayner's mouth. And whether you agree or disagree with what she's saying, that's a bit much, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's two things with Kemi Badenoch. There's the thing that people say she says stuff before she thinks about it, or that she's very forthright, and that's sometimes a quality people like, as you've alluded to. You know, that's a quality that you admire, and many other people do as well, myself included. I quite like somebody who is forthright and strong on things and says things as they are, as I do with Angela Rayner. You know, Angela's a similar sort of character in that regard. However, it's about the politics of it and the policies and things like the comments she's made about autistic people. She said that autism's a mental health issue. It's not. She's saying things.
Well, some people might argue it is. I mean, look, some people might argue it is.
No.
Yeah, but some people might argue that she's not an expert in autism, so I would forgive her that. I would forgive her that. She's not an expert in autism. You know.
I'm an autistic man with an autism diagnosis, so I mean, take it from me, it's not a mental health issue.
Yeah, well, fair enough. I mean, to some people it might be. I don't know.
It's to some people.
Yeah,
you don't.
Listen,
it's science, man.
But that's not
you
the
don't
biggest.
Get to redefine science.
Well, listen, that's not. But that's not the biggest. You know, that's not the biggest terrible thing that she said. That's what you're pointing out. Yeah, but if you're pointing that out against Banana Republic, Etonian scum and things like that, I don't think they're comparable. Right. Listen, I just want to quickly get to the farmers with you, because we'll, you know, that's fine. We can disagree on this. But what about the farmers, though? Just very briefly, Labour's policy, to the inheritance tax policy that could end up with people having to chop up their family farms and to just pay for the tax.
Yeah, I mean, 70% of farmers won't be affected by this. So it is those farmers that will be affected, or those ones that come within that bracket. There's no easy choices here.
Yeah, but does it not risk our food security, though, in your view? I mean, even if it's 70%, as you say, 30% is quite a wide amount, and that can continue to rise. That's not a, you know.
Those 30%, the risk assessments the government have done clearly point out that they're not going to be, you know, stopping production 30% of the food population. They wouldn't have done that if that was the case. So
I think they would have.
I believe it's a storm in a teacup. I believe people are annoyed about paying inheritance tax. Mark Littlewood there was quite fascinating, saying that, you know, Labour are targeting people who don't vote Labour. That's a very interesting assessment, seeing as what I think they're targeting are people who can afford to pay more tax. And if the people who can afford to pay more tax aren't voting Labour, then that tells you everything you need to know.
OK, well, I think it tells you everything you need to know when they don't understand the difference between being asset-rich and cash-poor. James Matthewson, thank you very much. OK, you're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Next, the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, will Labour kill off British farming?
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Well, the first thing on in my mind when I heard about this is, what has this country come to when we're talking about getting kids as young as 6 years old to be jabbed weekly or however often it is, because they are too fat? Where are the parents in all of this? There's three things actually here that are important. Number one is we do not know the long-term consequences of these jabs. So if I had a child and I was going to let them have the jab, I would be feeling like I'm treating them like a lab rat, to be quite honest with you, because we don't know the long-term consequences. Secondly, the manufacturers are clear that some of the potential side effects can be very serious. We're talking about potentially pancreatitis, let's get my word out, and also it lists as a potential side effect thyroid cancer. Arguably, it's called the gamble jab, to be honest with you, because of these potential side effects at the moment. And then thirdly, I come back to the parents. Where are the parents in all of this? Because they are the role models. So it really is about parenting, and it's about parenting from being a role model yourself in terms of being slim and healthy, and not expecting a jab to take your place and other people to take your place. If you have children, they are your responsibility. Think before you breed. The other thing you need to remember with this is when you stop taking that jab, it is highly likely that you're going to put all the weight back on. Now, the thought of a child of 6 years of age, starting with that jab, conditioning them mentally to live with that jab, as far as I'm concerned, is absolutely not on.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, you're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News, we're live on TV, online and on digital radio. As ever, we always love to hear what you think, and every day we run our poll. Today we're asking, can Tories regain seats from Labour and Reform with a new leader? Well, according to our poll, yes, 29% of you think they can, 63% think no, and 8% think don't know. Well, I'll bring you the results towards the end of the show. And as ever, gbnews.com/poll for all our polls. But now it's time for our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, will Labour kill off British farming after the government controversially extended inheritance tax to family farms in this week's budget? Elon Musk has become the latest high-profile figure to wade in over the ever-growing debate, and he's urged Sir Keir Starmer to leave farmers alone, adding that we owe them immense gratitude for making the food on our table. Right, also emerged that some farmers could even drive their tractors to Westminster in protest at this particular decision. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, will Labour kill off British farming? Joining me now, my panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and political commentator Susie Stride. Lizzie Cundy, I'll start with you.
Yeah, well, I was sitting with a farmer. I live next to a farmland, and he was in tears last night in our local pub, saying this is going to ruin him, ruin his family. He's got children that he was hoping to pass the family business on to. And I don't think Rachel Reeves has thought this through with I don't think she's got any business sense, any logic or any basic sort of economics. It's actually absolutely awful what they're doing, and it's going to affect more than 60,000 farms, seriously damaging family businesses and disabling food security. And, you know, don't bite the hand that feeds you. Literally, we need food. We need food to eat. We're now going to go to other places now to get food. It doesn't make sense what they're doing.
Susie's tried.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not an expert on farming, and I'm not an expert on what this could mean for farmers. But I think if the reality is that it is going to hit small family farms,
it will do. Yeah.
It will do.
I think that is not a good thing, and I do wonder. I was listening to the Rest is Politics. I love the Rest is Politics. I can't remember who does it, but. And they were saying actually they could see them going back and actually looking at this and whether this is one of the announcements that actually they may end up adjusting, you know, because I think, you know, as I say, I can't talk confidently in saying how much this is going to impact and, you know, is it really going to devastate small family farms? But if it is, I mean, interestingly, my sister and her husband live in the Lake District and lots of their friends are farmers, and these are lovely people that work really hard, and it's very much, you know, like the son and the nephew are all involved. And I think that isn't good. I don't think that's good for families. I don't think that's good for farming. I don't think it's good for food security. But I just don't know enough because obviously it's only been a couple of days. But you know, I wonder about watching this space and seeing whether this is one of the ones.
But they already work on very narrow margins, and they've also got the net zero. You know, we've got Miliband, haven't we, trying to plaster all over our countrysides with solar farms and wind farms. Him going on. I mean, they're struggling as it is, and people think, oh, they're rich. They're rich. No, that's their land. You know, they often have, you know, really short on cash flow. I mean, does anyone know what it costs to, you know, to buy an actual tractor? Do you have any idea? It's like over £200,000. You know, an old one that my farmer was telling me is 150. They can't afford to survive this, and it's disgusting what this government is doing to the farmers. And I hope they do go and protest, and I'll be there with them.
Yeah, I think it's almost like, you know, you've got Google and these massive big companies, and then you've got these small little startups, and it's almost like, you know, there's this massive difference, isn't there? You do get these massive farms that are owned by people, and, you know, they're absolutely huge and they make massive turnover. But like I say, you know, from reading about this, and as I say, I mean, I'm not an expert in it, you can see you've got these small family farms, and actually, like you say, you know, this could hit them really bad. And so, but I do wonder, you know, because, you know, it could well be that they go back and they look at this and they say, actually, you know, this is going to hit,
she's
you know, those small family farms.
She's dug a horns in.
So, you know, so I just wonder if this is one to just watch and see what happens. But if it is true that it is going to, you know, personally, I mean, I just don't think that's good. I don't think it's good. It's not good for families.
But,
it's not good for farms.
She's not good for any of us. Rachel Reeves has gone in like a bull in a china shop. Literally, she's got no judgment, no business sense, no idea. She's affected everyone. They lied. The only growth that's going to be is Keir Starmer's nose, because he's like Pinocchio. Honestly, and I'm sick of hearing about this black hole. I mean, is that the new toolmaker? All they talk about is this black hole. Seriously.
Well, the OBR wouldn't confirm that the amount, the 22 billion, was actually existed. So they did not confirm.
I mean, look, I mean, obviously, I don't agree with that analysis. I mean, I know Rachel on a personal level, and, you know, she actually is formidable. And I think, look, what you've got here, you've got two different political parties who have very, very different perspectives on the country and the way it should be run. So ultimately,
completely short-sighted.
So ultimately, they're not going to agree. But look, you know, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because the last budget we had sent the pound nosediving.
Well, it's slowly diving now.
Caused, you know, absolute havoc, including people's... The big one for me was mortgages.
But Susie, Susie, if that's the case, then interest rates are set to rise now, and the pound has slumped slowly. So what this is like a car crash, a slow-motion version of what we had with Liz Truss. And this whole thing with the inheritance tax is that if your farm is valued at £1 million, then you will be 20%, you'll have to pay 20% in inheritance tax. Now, that's not much. Land and those machines and everything else like that you're looking at $2 million
I think
on average.
Rachel Reeves. Yeah, I mean, look, I think I'd agree. Look, I think on the this is what I'm saying. I think when it comes to the announcements and the impact on small family farms, you know, if it is true, it's going to impact them in that way. I don't think that's good. However, on the broader picture of what Rachel Reeves has announced, I think it's a great budget.
Well, listen,
I think it's a great budget, and I think in years to come we're going to look back and say...
It is so short-sighted.
One of you at a time, because, sorry...
the country moving
let's
again.
Get Lizzie come back.
Can I just say, Susie, this is so short-sighted of her. I mean, actually, I think she should borrow some of Keir Starmer's freebie glasses. I really don't think she's thought this through, and the impact this is going to have on our farming, it is disgraceful. And you know how wonderful everyone says the English-British countryside is? That's down to our farmers that look after it. You know, it doesn't just get like that.
Okay,
they do everything, and it's disgraceful.
Well, listen, we'll come back to that because we're going to be talking in more detail about the budget as well. Elliot Keck will be joining us live, and we'll be discussing all the other components within the budget. But what do you think? gbnews.com/your say. Coming up, I'll be joined in the studio, as I said, Elliot Keck from the Taxpayers Alliance. We're going to discuss the budget in more detail. First, let's get your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you. The top stories. While Kemi Badenoch has vowed to tell the truth and stand up for our principles as she was elected the new leader of the Conservative Party. Badenoch defeated Robert Jenrick in a ballot of party members. She's the fourth female leader and the first ever black leader of the party. In her acceptance speech, she said the Tories have to be honest about the fact they made mistakes and they let standards slip. She also praised the outgoing leader Rishi Sunak for getting the party through a tough time.
It is the most enormous honour to be elected to this role, to lead the party that I love, the party that has given me so much. I hope that I will be able to repay that debt. I also want to thank Rishi. No one could have worked harder in such difficult times. Rishi, thank you for everything you did. We all wish you and your wonderful family the very best for the future.
A 13-year-old girl who was stabbed yesterday morning was known to her attackers, according to Humberside Police. 6 teenagers have been arrested after the girl was found with multiple stab wounds at the side of a major road in East Yorkshire. Police say she was found on the A63 in Hessle with life-threatening injuries, including lacerations to her neck, abdomen, chest and back. 4 boys and 2 girls aged between 14 and 17 were arrested in a nearby wooded area and are being questioned on suspicion of attempted murder. The victim remains in hospital in a critical condition. And the deadliest flash floods in Spain's modern history have killed at least 211 people and dozens still unaccounted for 4 days after torrential rains swept the eastern region of Valencia. Teams continue to search for bodies after flash flooding swept through large areas of the country. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez has ordered the largest peacetime troop deployment to deal with the aftermath, with 5,000 being drafted in to help. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More news from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Grey skies persisting over the next few days. Despite high pressure in charge, keeping things relatively calm for us, there is a lot of cloud stuck underneath this, but light winds for many of us at least to give that calm feel of things. As you head out this evening, perhaps for any bonfire night celebrations, though, it should stay largely dry. I can't rule out the odd spot of drizzle, though, where the cloud is thick enough, particularly around any higher ground sites where it certainly will be quite misty and murky in places. During the best of any clearer spells overnight is going to be for the far northeast of Scotland, and here we could see temperatures dropping down a bit, maybe even some patchy frost in rural areas, but elsewhere it's going to be a mild night underneath that cloud. Temperatures generally around 10 degrees Celsius as we start off on Sunday morning. And as we head throughout the day, well, it's quite a homogeneous story for many of us, with the clear spells mainly affecting northeastern areas of Scotland, so a bit of sunshine here. Quite breezy along northern coast of Scotland to begin with. They'll generally ease off as we head into the latter stages of the night. But for Northern Ireland, England and Wales, look at that widespread cloud across many areas. There is perhaps the potential as we head into the afternoon of a few brighter, sunnier spells to develop, maybe a bit more so than we have seen over recent days, but certainly the theme of the day is going to be fairly grey skies across the board. A little bit of a breeze in the southwest, but as I said, for many of us it is going to be relatively light winds overall. Temperatures perhaps are down by a degree or so compared to today, so we'll see around 12-13 degrees Celsius as the top temperatures for many of us. And that theme really continues as we head into the end of the weekend as well. Sunday evening is once again looking largely cloudy, perhaps a few fog patches developing in places, but the best of the clearer skies across the far north of Scotland. And it's likely to stay that way over the forthcoming week as well. High pressure remains in charge with a lot of cloud around. But as we head towards Wednesday, a slight shift in our wind direction should bring us something a little bit milder.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss my big opinion. Mark meets and my take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. Welcome. Now, look, let's break this down because I want to see how the budget works for you and how it's going to affect you. Whilst Rachel Reeve and Sir Keir Starmer continue to defend the measures announced in it, her maiden voyage, 40 billion in tax rises and increased borrowing as a necessity to bring us to financial stability, many have been expressing concerns about how it will actually impact them, and it's not good. And all of this includes people like small businesses, farmers and pensioners, all of which were or are working people. So will Rishi Sunak respond to the budget? We'll have a listen to what he said. I thought he was very impressive.
National insurance, up. Capital gains tax, up. Inheritance tax, up. Energy taxes, up. Business rates, up. First-time buyer stamp duty, up. Pensions tax, up. They have fiddled the figures. They don't like it, Mr. Speaker.
Well, he was dynamite, wasn't he? I'm joined in the studio by head of campaigns at the Taxpayers Alliance, Elliot Keck. Elliot, well, he was dynamite, but unfortunately, we're in a situation now because of him.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely fair. There's no doubt that the Tories deserve a large share of the blame for why, for example, we have what was going to be an 80-year high tax burden is now going to be a record high tax burden under the changes on Wednesday. But there's also no doubt that no budget that the Tories delivered, was as spectacularly disastrous, with the exception of perhaps the Liz Truss mini budget, as the one on Wednesday. And in a nice surprise for Sunak, he got his poll lead back on Friday, I think for the first time that he's ever had a poll lead over Starmer. And that was polling taken in the immediate aftermath of the budget.
So what are the main things in that budget? Where do we start with this disaster?
Fundamentally, it's a great time to be a public sector worker, brilliant time to be a civil servant, brilliant time to work in local government, to be an NHS middle manager. But terrible time if you're a pensioner. You're now facing having to pay inheritance tax on some of your pension, on any pension that you pass on to your children, grandchildren, whoever it is. It's a terrible time to be an investor with capital gains tax going up. It's a terrible time to be an employer, and particularly an employer looking to hire new people, maybe give your staff pay rises, bonuses, whatever it is, because of the hike in national insurance on employer contributions. And really, it's a terrible time to be a taxpayer anywhere in the United Kingdom.
So basically, it's a terrible time to be looking for any growth in the economy, because all those things, investors and employers, they are the arbiters of growth ultimately.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I think the Labour Party have shown on Wednesday that they have decisively abandoned their plan for growth. That was a nice talking point for them over the election campaign and in the first few months of government. But what they've decided instead is a very different path, which is just to plug every hole in the public sector they can, throw billions and billions of pounds in the hope that you might see small, minor improvements over the next few years, and hope that that will get them across the line in a few years' time.
What about the inheritance tax for farmers, which seems, I think they were trying to stop rich people from using the loophole in the law to acquire assets and hide money. But the only people it's affected really seriously are the farmers. Yeah, and the reason why people so desperately try to use any loopholes they can is because of how nasty this tax is. You know, you work hard all your life building up your wealth that you will have paid tax on all your life, and then, you know, half of it can just suddenly be taken by the tax man. So there's a reason why people want to use loopholes, but then there's also a reason why those loopholes exist, which is that many of these farms simply actually are worth quite a bit, not wealth you ever realise, because you never sell it. You aim to pass it down to the next generations, but now farmers are going to be hit by it. So, you know, that's just another group that is going to be hit really badly by this, I have to say, quite nasty budget. It does seem a bit ridiculous, like 1 million, and then you start paying inheritance tax. Yeah. If you're a landowner and a farmer who's got assets, I mean, apparently one of those JCB... Think how much a tractor costs. It's about £250,000. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, farming is not an industry with huge amounts of profit. It's an industry that actually a lot of people in because they really love it, they're really passionate about it. You know, they think it makes a major contribution to our societal fabric. They're often, you know, I think actually quite selfless people in many cases. And yet this Labour Party has decided to try and destroy their way of life in many cases. What about bringing up the minimum wage? Because surely that's a good thing, isn't it? But again, it's the employers who grow the economy who will suffer with that. Yeah, so listen, you know, I can understand why some people would be very supportive of an increase in the minimum wage. We obviously want people to be paid better, but the simple reality is now is a minimum wage worker hired now under these changes, working full-time, is going to cost an extra £2,500 for an employer with the increase of national minimum wage and employers' national insurance. You know, for many employers, that's just not affordable. They just cannot afford it. So they either won't hire that member of staff, you know, maybe they'll look to automate that role. And, you know, it's if you're going to increase the minimum wage, that should be the absolute last time you do something like hike national insurance on employers. Do you think this smacks of a lack of understanding of the repercussions of policies when you're making up stuff and not really understanding what the implications will be? Absolutely. This is a cabinet absolutely stocked full of public sector workers, trade union officials, charity workers, people that can always ultimately go to the taxpayer and ask for more money, never really have to think about profits, never get to the end of the year and actually have to look at a balance sheet. And, you know, you have the stress of, will I be able to pay my bills? Will I be able to pay, my taxes? Will I be able to pay my staff? And we do not have people like that in the cabinet, and it's really, really showing this. I don't understand how they've got away with splitting the national insurance. So if you're a public sector worker, then your employer doesn't have to pay it. But if you're a private sector worker, I mean, that is absolute two-tier, and it's absolutely disgraceful. Yeah, absolutely. And once again, it's this Labour Party, unfortunately, in this government, problem that the previous government had as well, but not to the same extent, of just, you know, ultimately viewing the private sector as not much more than just a cash cow to pay for an increasingly unproductive and inefficient public sector. So if you were Rachel Reeves right now, what would you reverse? What would you change? Well, I'd reverse most of it, to tell you the truth. But, I mean, the national insurance rises on employer contributions is the main thing. But listen, the key task for her now is, now that she's given the public sector all this money, she needs to start demanding some serious improvements. She needs to deliver. And very quickly, finally, how do we look to the rest of the world and investors? Do we look like an inviting option for investment? Well, listen, I mean, we look increasingly like a bad bet, I'm afraid. That's a simple reality. A bad bet. Elliot Keck, thank you very much, from the Taxpayers Alliance. So how do you feel about it? This is GB News. We're live on TV, online, and on digital radio. Coming up, the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is this the worst budget since Liz Truss's fiscal event?
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Online dating apps are still the go-to for millions of British adults, with 1 in 10 using them to look for a romantic connection.
Yes, are you one of them? Let us know. But with many apps introducing subscription fees and complex algorithms, the world of online dating has never been harder to navigate. So who better to join us to discuss this than Mr. Tinder himself, Stefan Pierre Tomlin. You have been dubbed Britain's best-looking eligible bachelor.
Yeah, so this happened back in 2016. Got an email from Tinder, and it was like, "You're the most swiped man on Tinder."
So just explain to us, for viewers who don't know, what is swiping? What does that mean on Tinder?
Yeah, so on Tinder, the app, if you swipe left, that means you don't like the person in front of you, and if you swipe to the right, that means you like that person.
So do you mind still being associated with that? It's a good thing.
Well, it made me who I am now, and I love sharing how I was successful, and now I'm like a dating expert.
What's your situation now? Are you with anyone? Are you still single, paying the bill?
So I'm seeing someone at the minute. Things are going well, and I'm a dating expert, so I'm always giving advice to people.
Does she know your title of most swiped?
Of course, who doesn't? It's quite hard. It's quite hard being the most swiped man on Tinder because you get a label on you. So I find it harder than anyone else, to be honest.
And where did you meet her? That's the big question.
At an event.
So not on Tinder?
Not on Tinder, ironically.
So for all that troubled online, it's actually a real life rendezvous. Which,
I mean, I have met people on Tinder in the past, and it has worked. Well, it didn't work, but yeah.
I need to know how to do the famous Stefan Smolder.
That camera is not a camera. That is your best friend, that's your lover. So you really smiles from the camera, so it goes like this.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, this is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is this the worst budget since Liz Truss's fiscal event? Well, I've got my panel joining me now, Lizzie Cundy and also Susie Stride. Let's get stuck in. I'm going to ask you, Susie Stride. It's pretty damning, the budget. Not many people. There are a few beneficiaries, public sector workers, but pensioners, they're not benefiting. Investors, employers, farmers, a lot of people missing out.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've discussed about the farmers, and I think that is problematic. But, look, as I say, you know, people come from different places on this. I come from the perspective of, you know, I come from an area, highest child poverty rates in the country. I am excited to see investment in schools. I'm excited to see not just investment in the NHS, but also reform, this whole thing of moving to digitalisation, because you're absolutely right. You can't just throw money at something. You've also got to have reform. I'm excited to see, you know, reform to our planning system to get us building again, to get us building those 1.5 million homes. I think there are lots of great things, even, you know, the investment in technology, the fact that, you know, 63 billion worth of investment from private companies was announced just a couple of weeks ago. You know, you don't have that level of confidence if you're doing something wrong. Now, ultimately, it's absolutely normal that the markets have this little shake after a major budget like this, you know. But for me, the perspective that I come from is, no, I want to see investment. I'm excited about...
But who's going to invest? If every time you employ someone, it's going to cost you a couple of £1,000s extra, and you're a private company, the public sector will be fine, though. Yeah. Who's going to invest?
Yeah, and look, I agree. Look, again, it's those small businesses. I'm not happy if, you know, actually this is going to hit them too hard.
Let's get on Lizzie Cundy.
You just said who's going to invest. No one's going to invest. All the multimillionaires are leaving this country after this budget. Already 5,000 have left, going to Dubai, Portugal, elsewhere. They're not staying in this country. How is this country going to grow with this budget? Seriously, it's absolutely shocking. It's soul-destroying. And they said they wouldn't tax the working people. They've taxed every aspect of everyone's life, you know, and we've just talked about the farmers, it's the pensioners who have lost out, you know, families, small businesses, the list goes on and on and on. The only ones that are going to be OK are the civil servants. You know, it's just awful.
It literally is.
Literally, and they have fiddled the books, as Rishi said. I mean, Rishi's, as you said, Nana, it was his last hurrah. He was magnificent.
But a little bit too late.
Too little, too late.
All right, I just want to read this out from Dennis. Dennis says, this is what happens when you elect a government, albeit by default, with no real mandate, which is made up of totally inadequate for the task, third-rate polytechnic student politicians, none of whom could run a whelk stall. That's what he said. The entire government is out of its depth, led by a liar, that's what he's saying, who, not lawyer, liar, that's what he said, who is now intent on neutering all dissent, even in Parliament, having bought off the Speaker. This is a comment from somebody else, and also being totally compromised. The question is, who in Parliament is going to rid us of this absolute waste of space in the national interest? So that's somebody, obviously Keir Starmer's not here to defend himself, but that is the view of somebody who's sent a message in that feels that the Labour government are inept and totally out of
I totally agree. I totally agree with that message. And also, very conveniently, they didn't mention anything about immigration, did they?
No.
What are they going to do? Smashing the boats? Well, let me tell you, 1,500 came in, 30,000 have been in just this year. What are they going to do?
Also, you mentioned 1.5 million new homes, but if you don't stop this influx of people coming into the country in a way in which you can't manage, then those weren't really. I think
for me, look, again, we've got different perspectives on the country. You know, I want to see investment in schools. I want to see teachers being paid properly, so they want to be.
We all want to see that.
Well, yeah, so if you want to see that, it costs. And so, look, ultimately, the alternative, and this is the question, what is the alternative budget? The alternative is we've had 10 years of 6.5 million people on the NHS waiting list. That was not what Labour left this country.
To be fair, sorry, Susie,
yes,
to be fair, COVID did happen, and that was...
Pre-COVID, already you had coming through the roof. So you're right, absolutely, there was a massive impact from COVID. But pre-COVID, we already had that time that people were waiting for a GP appointment, 48 hours.
It was Labour's own decisions, policies, to favour the unions over the pensioners. It was there to give all this to net zero, foreign aid, climate crisis. It's up to them. It's their political decisions, right, Susie? So they've spent so much. Look what they've given to the NHS, which is, you know, they said they were going to reform.
Well, we shall see, because Wes Streeting talked about reform, and then he hasn't reformed anything, but he's chucked 1.5 billion in, which, as we said, is about 8 days' worth of costs for the NHS. So I'm not so sure, but what do you think? gbnews.com/your say. Coming up, we'll be getting more reaction to the news that Kemi Badenoch has defeated Robert Jenrick as the new leader of the Conservative Party. But first, let's get an update with your weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Grey skies persisting over the next few days. Despite high pressure in charge, keeping things relatively calm for us, there is a lot of cloud stuck underneath this, but light winds for many of us at least to give that calm feel of things. As you head out this evening, perhaps for any bonfire night celebrations, though, it should stay largely dry. I can't rule out the odd spot of drizzle, though, where the cloud is thick enough, particularly around any higher ground sites where it certainly will be quite misty and murky in places. Generally, the best of any clearer spells overnight is going to be for the far northeast of Scotland, and here we could see temperatures dropping down a bit, maybe even some patchy frost in rural areas, but elsewhere it's going to be a mild night underneath that cloud. Temperatures generally around 10 degrees Celsius as we start off on Sunday morning. And as we head throughout the day, well, it's quite a homogeneous story for many of us, with the clear spells mainly affecting northeastern areas of Scotland, so a bit of sunshine here. Quite breezy along northern coast of Scotland to begin with. They'll generally ease off as we head into the latter stages of the night. But for Northern Ireland, England and Wales, look at that widespread cloud across many areas. There is perhaps the potential as we head into the afternoon of a few brighter, sunnier spells to develop, maybe a bit more so than we have seen over recent days, but certainly the theme of the day is going to be fairly grey skies across the board. A little bit of a breeze in the southwest, but as I said, for many of us it is going to be relatively light winds overall. Temperatures perhaps are down by a degree or so compared to today, so we'll see around 12-13 degrees Celsius as the top temperatures for many of us. And that theme really continues as we head into the end of the weekend as well. Sunday evening is once again looking largely cloudy, perhaps a few fog patches developing in places with the best of the clearer skies across the far north of Scotland. And it's likely to stay that way over the forthcoming week as well. High pressure remains in charge with a lot of cloud around. But as we head towards Wednesday, a slight shift in our wind direction should bring us something a little bit milder.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could win Christmas on us this year. There's cash, £20,025 in tax-free cash to make your new year go with a bang. There's also £5,000 to spend on all the gifts. We've also got Christmas lunch for you, with £500 in vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a festive GB News goodie bag. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
On Tuesday night, stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, Tuesday night from 11.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course, it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for this hour, political commentator Susie Stride, and also broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. Coming up, is Kemi Badenoch the right person to lead the Tory party? She pipped Robert Jenrick to the post. The poll on X is asking you that very question. Is Kemi the right person to lead the party? Difficult conversations on the way as the Labour Party double down on their VAT raid on private schools and independent schools prepare to sue the government. I'll be joined by the spokesperson for education, not taxation. But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you very much. The top stories this hour. Kemi Badenoch has vowed to tell the truth and stand up for our principles as she was elected the new leader of the Conservative Party. Badenoch defeated Robert Jenrick in a ballot of party members. She's the fourth female leader and the first ever black leader of the party. In her acceptance speech, she said the Tories have to be honest about the fact they made mistakes and let standards slip. She also praised the outgoing leader Rishi Sunak for getting the party through a tough time.
It is the most enormous honour to be elected to this role, to lead the party that I love, the party that has given me so much. I hope that I will be able to repay that debt. I also want to thank Rishi. No one could have worked harder in such difficult times. Rishi, thank you for everything you did. We all wish you and your wonderful family the very best for the future.
While the Prime Minister has congratulated the new Tory leader, the Labour Party chair Ellie Reeves says she's worried about the policies that Kemi Badenoch would advocate as leader of the opposition. Ms Reeves criticised the Conservatives for dragging out the leadership contest and not taking accountability for their time in government.
You know, we've spent the last 4 months with the Conservatives, rather than take any kind of responsibility for the mess that they've left the country in after 14 years of Conservative government, rather than take responsibility, they've just been talking to each other with more sort of division and chaos and infighting as this leadership election has played out.
Breaking news this hour, a 10-year-old girl has died after being bitten by her family's dog. North Yorkshire Police were called at 4:15 p.m. yesterday to the incident that happened inside the family's home in the Moulton area. The girl suffered serious injuries and died at the scene. A family member secured the dog inside a car before emergency services arrived. A 13-year-old girl who was stabbed yesterday morning was known to her attackers, according to Humberside Police. 6 teenagers have been arrested after the girl was found with multiple stab wounds at the side of a major road in East Yorkshire. Police say she was found on the A63 in Hessle with life-threatening injuries, including lacerations to her neck, abdomen, chest and back. 4 boys and 2 girls, aged between 14 and 17, were arrested in a nearby wooded area and are being questioned on suspicion of attempted murder. The victim remains in hospital in a critical condition. Elsewhere, more than 5,000 migrants arrived in the UK after crossing the Channel in October, making it the busiest month of the year so far. According to Home Office figures, 230 people made the journey in 5 boats on Thursday, which brings the total number of arrivals recorded last month to 5,417. It comes after the 10th death this month was recorded on Wednesday, with the total number of people who've died while trying to cross the English Channel this year now standing at 50. The deadliest flash floods in Spain's modern history have killed at least 211 people and dozens still unaccounted for 4 days after torrential rains swept the eastern region of Valencia. Teams continue to search for bodies after flash flooding swept through large areas of the country. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez has ordered the largest peacetime troop deployment to deal with the aftermath, with 5,000 being drafted in to help. In other news, the drug watchdog has warned it's received up to 10 reports of deaths linked to weight loss jabs such as Ozempic. Cases of serious reactions to that drug, including nausea and vomiting, are now in their thousands. This comes as the General Pharmaceutical Council announced plans for additional safeguards to ensure online pharmacies are properly checking patient information. Former Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has led the tributes to incredibly kind comedian Janey Godley after she's died at the age of 63. The 54-year-old politician said Godley was a force of nature and one of the funniest people I've ever known in a post on X, which featured pictures of the pair together. The Scottish comedian died after receiving palliative treatment for terminal cancer. And Covent Garden's famous Christmas tree has been handpicked and freshly harvested ahead of this year's festive season. For the 15th consecutive year, the 55-foot Norwegian spruce Christmas tree was chosen from Woods Farm, a 200-acre festive forest near Solihull in the West Midlands. Woods Farm also supplies festive trees to other notable locations such as Downing Street and Windsor Castle. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in half an hour.
Good afternoon, this is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, we'll be getting all the latest reaction to the news that Kemi Badenoch is the new leader of the Conservative Party after she defeated Robert Jenrick. Difficult conversations. Joining me, spokesperson from Education, not Taxation. We'll be discussing the government's planned VAT raid on private schools. And following on from that, for the Great British Debate this hour, I am asking, are Labour trying to kill off private schools? Send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. So almost 4 months after they lost the general election, the Conservative Party finally has a new leader, Kemi Badenoch. The former business secretary defeated her rival, Robert Jenrick, but just over 12,000 votes were in it. In her victory speech, Kemi Badenoch described being appointed leader as an enormous honour, but acknowledged the last Conservative government had let standards slip. You're not wrong. Well, let's see what former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker makes of that. Norman, welcome to the programme. Norman, what are your thoughts on this then? Kemi Badenoch, is this a better person to be up against Keir Starmer? What's your thoughts?
Well, let me just say, first of all, it's an historic day for this country that we've got a black woman in charge now of a major political party. And 30 years ago, that simply wouldn't have happened when I came into politics. Back in those days, you couldn't be gay, you couldn't be black, you could hardly be female and lend yourself in a top position. So Britain's moved on a long way, and that's a really good sign. As far as the Conservative Party is concerned, for what it's worth, I think she's a better choice than Robert Jenrick. She's got more about her and more likely to get the headlines. But look, I mean, the Conservative Party is in a terrible state. It's down to 121 seats. It's worst election result for about a century, I think. It's divided, fractured party. It loses seats to the Lib Dems in the centre and to Reform on the right. And she's got a mountain to climb. But, you know, I wish her well.
Yeah, well, but she's quite a historic day, I agree, because, you know, she is the first black female person to lead a political party in this country, and it's the Tory party. If you look at the Labour Party, they haven't had anybody other than just white males, which is nothing wrong with that, if they are indeed the best candidate. But I would suggest that there must be some women that could have done a pretty good job, or one that could at least do one better than Keir Starmer.
Well, if I can be slightly nerdy, Margaret Beckett was temporary leader of the Labour Party after John Smith, I think, died. So they've had a stand-in, as it were. But you're quite right that the Labour Party was first out the traps, in a sense, with black MPs and also with female MPs, and actually it's now lost ground to the Conservatives and Lib Dems. I think the Lib Dems have stand to be corrected. About half or more of the Lib Dem MPs are now female.
Pretty good. But the Lib Democrats don't have many ethnic minorities in their sort of party, as it were. I don't see that. But
a
hey,
few, not enough.
But hey, you know, like, to me, I don't really care what colour someone is. If they can do the job, they can do the job.
Exactly.
But I would have thought that with the number of women that are on this planet and the number of women that are within those parties, that some of them could have at least led some of the other parties. You know, I just see that there. But the Conservative Party are getting a bit of a bounce in the polls, especially after Rishi Sunak's speech. And right now they're currently, just from one poll, leading in terms of popularity against the Labour Party. Do you believe in that poll, and do you think that that's probably how the land is lying now?
Well, in the same way as the general election result, in my view, was a rejection of the Conservative Party. People voted quite often to reject the Conservatives rather than for anybody else positively. The same thing is happening now. I don't think people who are saying they're going to vote Conservative necessarily mean that. What they're doing is saying, we don't like the Labour budget and the Labour government's not starting off very well. It's a kind of protest vote, really.
And what do you make of some of the latest policies in Rachel Reeves' budget? I'd love to get your take on it.
Well, I mean, I think she's taking a risk, and it is tax and spend, a return to the 1970s tax and spend. She's relying on growth that may or may not actually transpire. She's in difficulty but doesn't transpire. I'm disappointed by the transport proposals in the bill. As a former transport minister, she's put bus fares up from £2 to £3. Buses are used by some of the poorest people in society. She's put rail fares up by 4.3%, way above inflation from next March. She's increased the cost of the rail card, but at the same time, she's frozen fuel duty. So she's helping motorists, but she's not helping those who use public transport. And that's discrimination, actually.
Well, listen, Norman, always good to get your opinion. Thank you so much for joining us. Really good to speak to you. That is former Minister Norman Bacon. Bacon? I call him Bacon. Norman Bacon. Right, but listen, let's hear from the US President. This is live. Candidate Donald Trump, who is hosting a rally in North Carolina.
You would have liked that on one of your races, wouldn't you? But no, to get those numbers, we had the worst numbers, I think, maybe like sort of ever. And they were like 4 days, and I want people to remember it because, you know, a lot of people said, well, this won't affect the election because a lot of people aren't thinking about that. Of course, these people, they'll say, look at all of them. Look at all of the fake news. They say all of that. They always say that, but I think it's unbelievable timing. If I had my choice I think it's perfect. I covered it last night. We were in Milwaukee, in the biggest arena you've ever seen, same size as Madison Square Garden. It was packed hours before the event. We could have filled it up twice. And that's Wisconsin, the great state of Wisconsin. And a great Green Bay player, the great Brett Favre, you know, he endorsed me. He endorsed me, and that's a big thing in Wisconsin. He was on the Packers, as football fans know. He could rip the ball. He could throw that ball so hard, so fast. Sometimes it would hit the receiver in the face. He couldn't see the ball was coming so fast. It was a lot of embarrassment, you know. It just ripped the ball into their hands, and he was great. I shook his hand. He had the biggest hand I've ever seen. Now I know why he threw. His hand was like 3 times the size of a normal hand. His fingers were like sausages. I said, they're the big. I looked at it. I said, that's the biggest hand. I mean, you know. And so he was born to do that. But you know what? He said, I've never done this before. He did a beautiful little speech, and he said, I've never done this before. I've never endorsed anybody. I'm endorsing President Trump because we want him to just do the same job he did. Really nice. Really nice. Never did it before. For these past few years, we've been fighting to take back our country, and it's been a failed and corrupt administration, a horrible administration, an administration that, you know, you like to see like a football coach. He brings something there. He brings a little esprit de corps. There's no esprit de corps. Biden, look at, and by the way, they're fighting like hell, the two of them. Biden said, you stole my presidency, and you're no better than I am. No, it's the same thing. I think the numbers, I think Joe, maybe, we're going to see on Tuesday, right? But I think Joe might have done better. But Joe, the reports are, look, he hates me. We had a debate. He didn't do too well, but that's okay because, you know, you don't take an election away. He didn't do well, and his numbers went down a little bit. And you know what happened? They walked in and they said, you're not running anymore. Get out. You're out of the race. This is the president of the United States that they did this. It was a coup. I don't like the word, but it was a coup. But it was sort of worse than a coup because a coup takes a little more time. This was like Crazy Nancy and some others. They walked in. She's crazy as a bedbug. And somebody should look at her Visa stock. She sold her position. This is a woman started off with nothing. Now she's worth $200 million. Do you think she's been honest? No, she has a big position in Visa, right? I think it's Visa, one of them, whatever, who the hell cares, but it's Visa. And, you know, she plays the market. It's not really playing when you have the information she's got. So she sold her entire position the day before it was announced that Visa's under massive investigation. Now, is the fake news going to do anything about that? I doubt it. Together we have overcome every attack, every abuse, and even 2 assassination attempts. I remember them. And now it all comes down to this. Remember, assassination nasty, but it really is. I mean, they go after people that are meaningful. They go after people that are meaningful. They go after people that believe in making other countries pay for what they do. We're tired of being ripped off, which consequential, I guess, is the best word. They seem to go after consequences.
So that is Donald Trump. He's hosting a rally in North Carolina. It's going to be very exciting, isn't it? The whole American presidential elections. But joining me now, columnist and broadcaster Lizzie Cundy and also political commentator Susie Stride on their views. Now, Susie, who do you want to win? If you have a choice.
I'm going to make you guys very unhappy. I mean, look, I don't want Donald Trump to win. And that, for me, is around things like NATO, is around his, close relationship with Putin.
What did he do to NATO?
Well, it's around he's got this relationship with Putin, which lots of people fear could mean that he pulls us out of the Ukraine war. I just don't think it's good.
What would be wrong with that?
Because I don't think it's good.
Do you want to carry the war on?
I don't think it's good that we let Russia and Putin, who for me is a very evil man, poisoned people in Britain, in this country. I don't think it is good to let him just invade countries willy-nilly. I don't think that's good.
No, but if he's got a relationship with him, that would be better. Listen, I looked at the map the other day and saw the size of of Russia.
Yeah.
It's colossal.
Yes,
it's
it is
huge, right?
Yeah. So why did he need to take Ukraine?
Why did he want any more?
Look, I've got to say, Susie, you're not going to like to hear this, but under Trump, there were no wars. He controls Putin. It's good he's got a relationship with him. I think that's a plus, surely. And I've got to say, I was in America recently, I was in LA, and I watched the 60 Minutes that Harris was on. It was a disaster. She hasn't got a clue. She really doesn't. And then we find out it's been edited.
Well,
Trump is going to be suing CBS, and rightly so. But I have to say it will be a worry because she got rid of Joe Biden. Joe Biden didn't want to go, and he's not happy about it. But that was the biggest Democratic lie, that they all knew that Sleepy Joe wasn't up for the job. He wasn't well, and they all covered it up.
So you see, you're happy with that?
No, look, I think there's a few things for me. I'm not, when it comes to where I politically stand, I'm not with where the Democrats are at. Do you know what I mean? Because for me, that's far to the right of where I'm at. But, I'm not happy about things like getting rid of affordable healthcare. One of the things I think that makes this country great is if you need to go to the hospital, you don't have to pull out your credit card.
Do you think that makes this country great? It's an absolute mess. It means that literally nobody gets treated properly or in time. I would rather people paid insurance.
Under a Labour government, the NHS was in a great place, and actually the NHS was something to praise.
I think we need to talk about what Tony Blair did at PFI.
I don't think America's lost all respect on the global world under Biden, and sadly, he's not well. And Harris isn't up for the job. She gets talked through an earpiece. She hasn't really, and I'm sadly to say she's politically inept.
All right, well, listen, next up, a difficult conversation. Thank you to Susie Stride and also Elizabeth Cundy. They'll be back. But today, on the way, difficult conversations, joining me the spokesperson for Education, Not Taxation, which campaigns against the government's 20% VAT rate on private schools. That's next.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Right, up and down the country, many parents are preparing or have indeed already sent their child off to university.
Indeed, but sometimes it can leave parents struggling to cope with the, quote, empty nest syndrome their child leaves behind. So joining us now to discuss how to cope with sending off your sprogs to university, or not so sprogs, is broadcaster and psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. Good morning, Lucy. Nice to see you this early. This is a real thing, isn't it? It's our colleague Paul Coitz, our sports expert, describes it as grief, sending your young adults off to uni and leaving the nest for the first time.
Yes, I think grief is the right word because it's an ending, and it's not just an ending with your relationship with your child. It changes from here on in, but it also is very much about your identity. Your identity as a parent is weakening. You'll always be that child's parent, but you're not going to have the same involvement on a daily basis. And so you're left to think, OK, well, what does my life look like going forward? What's my relationship? If you're in a relationship with a partner, how is that going to change? And like all elements of grief, there's going to be a bit of a process. There's going to be that transition period where you adjust to your new life, just as your sprogs, as you call them, are adjusting to their new, exciting phase of their life.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. If you just tuned in, where have you been? It's near the end of the show, but it's fine. We're 21 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and it's time for this week's Difficult Conversations. Today, joining me, Lavina Tandon. She's a spokesperson for Education, Not Taxation, a group that campaigns against Labour's VAT raid on private schools on the grounds that it is likely to force children out of schools they love, close independent schools and increase pressure on popular state schools whilst failing to raise the money promised. Well, Lavina is with me right now. Lavina, so talk to me about the Labour government are sticking with this. Rachel Reeves doubled down on it. I did not like the flavour of her text, where she, not her text, her tweet, where she said that, you know, about Bridget Phillipson came out with all the stuff about private schools and AstroTurf and something which is, to me, sounded like the politics of envy. Where are we with everything now?
So finally, now that they have completely gone with the policy, if I speak from the group, which is now 220,000 plus people,
wow,
they are clearly very disappointed. But at the same time, we are quite determined to continue our campaign to reduce the damage that this policy is causing and will cause. So that's where we are in terms of what we are going to do, of course. And therefore, the campaign continues. And we are still asking and hoping at some point we will be spoken to and we will be heard and there will be a dialogue. Because while the Labour Party was campaigning and when they got into the 10 Downing Street, we've done everything from social media to handing out letter in person to 10 Downing Street to urge them to speak to us, but that has not had any fruition.
So nobody's spoken to you from Downing Street with regard to your campaign, which is almost a quarter of a million people?
No, they directed us to the Treasury. What I'm saying that we haven't had any conversation. The Labour Party, Bridget Phillipson or the Prime Minister hasn't made any attempt to agreed to speak to us and say, there is a story, we do have a point of view, listen to us too. There's one thing I want to point out, Nana, every time that we have this conversation, the people who are not for this always mention Winchester, Eton, Harrow, and that's where they stop. But there are almost 2,600 schools. So what about the 2,597 schools that are not Winchester, Eton or Harrow.
Well, they don't care, do they? Because you're the 7%. And Bridget Phillipson does constantly talk about the 93% of people who go to state schools and how they're going to serve them. Now, I was just reading this tweet again, and every time I read it, it makes me really angry. This is the one from Bridget Phillipson, where she says, our state schools need teachers more than private schools need embossed stationery. Our children need mental health support more than private schools need new pools. And our students need careers advice, more than private schools need AstroTurf pitches. That is the typical kind of stereotype of what a private school is, and that's not really right, is it?
I showed this tweet to my daughter, and she turned around and said, but my school doesn't have swimming pool, but my school doesn't have AstroTurf. They have to use some other ground to go and use it for sports. And that's where I am saying that a lot of these schools are actually small, specialised, and making essential, and I use that word with care, essential contribution to the education of children at large, because there is a group, 20% of the entire population of the children in independent school are SEN, and only 7% ECH.
Which is special educational needs.
This is where they step in.
So SEN, for anyone who's listening, special education needs.
Yes.
So these are the children who don't really fit into state schools.
Correct. And they are given EHCP, which is Education and Healthcare Plan. And if they are on it, then they're exempt from this policy. But that policy, EHCP plan, is actually, it's very hard to get on it. And if people if they have no... A lot of parents who have chosen private school is because they could not find a place in state school or were not able to be supported. And if these parents take the government to court, they will win because it is essential.
But why will they win? They might not win. I mean, Keir Starmer, you know, he's got quite a good understanding of the legal procedures and so on and so forth. Why will they win?
Because it is important for the child to get its education. So there have been cases, I don't want to go completely into the legal side of it, but there are cases where they have won in the tribunal and then the state school has to give that fee wherever to the private school.
And you know what you said there as well, because I know someone who has two children. The two children, they have to provide schooling for these children.
Correct.
These children have come from another school, which is somewhere else in a part of London. They're now in Surrey somewhere, so they're going to a new school. Because there are not places at the school that is nearest their house, the school and the council will pay for a taxi every day, they do, for these children to get to school. It's about £1,500 a month.
Yes, and
they're paying for this.
Yes, and so these are the examples that don't come out to say that genuinely we also want that the state schools are equipped.
Well, they have to provide. So if your children come out of paid education, the state sector must provide education for them.
Correct.
And if that space is in a school that is many miles away, they must now also provide some sort of transport.
Yes, and it has happened and it is happening, and therefore the tax bill, so the bill on the taxpayer is going to rise, and which is what we have been saying as well, that while you're forcing out children from the school, and with tweets like this that you mentioned, you're putting creating a divide between the parents. It's a very, it's not a very savoury, it's not tasteful
divisive,
to say,
isn't it?
divisive, right, attitude. While these children need to be educated, and the school is not yet equipped, you will not raise that money. Already in my own son's class, 3 children have already left, and they were just waiting on this policy to come, and now many more will leave.
But what about the argument that a lot of these schools have been raising their fees for quite large percentages every year anyway?
See, but not 20%.
That is a lot.
It's 20% in one go and suddenly, and interim. So what I want to say, I think Labour Party should look at their own MP, Mark Ronda's research to say that everything that has been done who has said that in-year transfers are not very good to have. There are researchers to say, there are councils who have come and said, some of the parents have also received saying in-year transfers not allowed. I have also gone and spoken to schools and said, no, in-year transfer is not something something that is very much advised as well. So
and of course, this is people moving in the middle of the school year. So this policy comes in January.
Yes.
And of course, then kids will have to move.
So I just want to quickly take you 19th of July. This was announced. Oh, belated happy birthday. I will never forget it, because it was on 19th of July that it was Labour finally stamped the fact that we will go through with this policy. And it was holidays. And what would parents do? We have to pay one term in advance. We have to inform the school one term in advance. And we could not have done that at that point in time. And now some people were hoping that sense will prevail. OK, it hasn't prevailed. So now it's January. My son is in GCSE. He won't get the subjects in other schools. And he's saying, Mom, can you please keep me here for 2 years now that he has made friends as well, A-levels,
It's cruel.
GCSE. So, you know, there are... I would like Labour Party to consult their own MP, Mark Ronda, to take some advice from him.
Well, listen, so in my view, it seems a cruel, absurd policy that won't raise the revenue that they're planning. Also, in my view, I think it smacks to me like politics of envy, having read some of the texts and some of the tweets and things from some of these politicians talking about AstroTurf pitches and all that assumption, which I think is totally ill-advised and also doesn't really understand, doesn't even take into account the real situation. But, Lavina, thank you very much for joining me. Yeah. Education Taxation, you can check them out on Facebook. They are there, and if you feel the same way, then you could possibly join the group. But, you know, what are your thoughts? gbnews.com/your say. It's fast approaching 32 minutes after 5 o'clock. If you just tuned in, welcome. This is GB News. It's still to come, my great British debate this hour. And I'm asking, are Labour trying to kill off private schools? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, Lizzie Cundy and Susie Stride. But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you very much. The top stories. Well, Kemi Badenoch has vowed to tell the truth and stand up for our principles as she was elected the new leader of the Conservative Party. Badenoch defeated Robert Jenrick in a ballot of party members. She's the fourth female leader and the first ever black leader of the party. In her acceptance speech, she said the Tories have to be honest about the fact they made mistakes and let standards slip. She also praised the outgoing leader Rishi Sunak for getting the party through a tough time.
It is the most enormous honour to be elected to this role, to lead the party that I love, the party that has given me so much. I hope that I will be able to repay that debt. I also want to thank Rishi. No one could have worked harder in such difficult times. Rishi, thank you for everything you did. We all wish you and your wonderful family the very best for the future.
Elsewhere, a 13-year-old girl who was stabbed yesterday morning was known to her attackers, according to Humberside Police. 6 teenagers have been arrested after the girl was found with multiple stab wounds at the side of a major road in East Yorkshire. Police say she was found on the A63 in Hessle with life-threatening injuries, including lacerations to her neck, abdomen, chest and back. 4 boys and 2 girls, aged between 14 and 17, were arrested in a nearby wooded area and are being questioned on suspicion of attempted murder. The victim remains in hospital in a critical condition. And the deadliest flash floods in Spain's modern history have killed at least 211 people and dozens still unaccounted for 4 days after torrential rains swept the eastern region of Valencia. Teams continue to search for bodies after flash flooding swept through large areas of the country. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has ordered the largest peacetime troop deployment to deal with the aftermath, with 5,000 being drafted in to help. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More news from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Grey skies persisting over the next few days. Despite high pressure in charge, keeping things relatively calm for us, there is a lot of cloud stuck underneath this, but light winds for many of us at least to give that calm feel of things. As you head out this evening, perhaps for any bonfire night celebrations, though, it should stay largely dry. I can't rule out the odd spot of drizzle, though, where the cloud is thick enough, particularly around any higher ground sites where it certainly will be quite misty and murky in places. Generally, the best of any clearer spells overnight is going to be for the far northeast of Scotland, and here we could see temperatures dropping down a bit, maybe even some patchy frost in rural areas, but elsewhere it's going to be a mild night underneath that cloud. Temperatures generally around 10 degrees Celsius as we start off on Sunday morning. And as we head throughout the day, well, it's quite a homogeneous story for many of us, with the clear spells mainly affecting northeastern areas of Scotland, so a bit of sunshine here. Quite breezy along the northern coast of Scotland to begin with. They'll generally ease off as we head into the latter stages of the night. But for Northern Ireland, England and Wales, look at that widespread cloud across many areas. There is perhaps the potential as we head into the afternoon of a few brighter, sunnier spells to develop, maybe a bit more so than we have seen over recent days, but certainly the theme of the day is going to be fairly grey skies across the board. A little bit of a breeze in the southwest, but as I said, for many of us it is going to be relatively light winds overall. Temperatures perhaps are down by a degree or so compared to today, so we'll see around 12-13 degrees Celsius as the top temperatures for many of us. And that theme really continues as we head into the end of the weekend as well. Sunday evening is once again looking largely cloudy, perhaps a few fog patches developing in places, but the best of the clearer skies across the far north of Scotland. And it's likely to stay that way over the forthcoming week as well. High pressure remains in charge with a lot of cloud around. But as we head towards Wednesday, a slight shift in our wind direction should bring us something a little bit milder.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Good afternoon, welcome. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. It's 37 minutes after 5 o'clock. If you've just tuned in, great to have your company. Right, but at GB News, we always love to hear what you think every day, so we run our poll of the day. Today, we're asking, can Tories regain seats from Labour and Reform with a new leader? And the final results are in. Yes, 30% say they can, 62% say no, they can't, and 8% of you think you don't know. Well, as ever, go to gbnews.com/poll for all the latest polling. But right now, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, are Labour trying to kill off private schools? Now, as expected, Labour introduced a 20% VAT raid on private schools in their budget this week, despite the warnings that it could cause many of those schools to close and increase the pressure on the state sector. In anticipation of this policy, lots of parents paid private school fees in advance of the actual July 2024 deadline. But the Treasury has warned that those who paid early fees after that date risk a new tax raid on the grounds it would count as tax avoidance. You can't do it afterwards. You'd have to say before, if people do it, it can be seen as tax avoidance. But before they're allowed to do it, because you never said that was the plan. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are Labour trying to kill off private schools? Well, let's get the thoughts of my panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and political commentator Susie Stride. All right, who shall I start with? Is it your turn, Lizzie, to start?
Well, I will happily start.
Go on, then.
Because I think this is absolutely shocking what they're doing. Private schools are actually about to sue Labour as they impose this VAT fees, and I'm not surprised. This is politics of envy, it really is, and it's impacting on working people because many mums and dads, parents, work about 3 jobs to put their children through private schools, and it isn't for just the elite. You know, people really strive and make sacrifices to put their kids through this, and it's you know, it's not only having a terrible impact on the children that are going to have to be uprooted. It's you know, what's happened to adult choice? I think it's absolutely disgusting. And what happens to the 35,000 children? Where are they supposed to go? To state schools that are already, the classes are too big already. It's not fair. This is so shocking. It's another short-sighted, messy policy that Reeves has done, and it's shocking what he's doing to our children.
Susie Stride.
I mean, interestingly, this is an area, so I've spent almost 20 years working in the education sector, alternative education, etc. And it's an area that I feel really passionate about. And I think I understand, like I have compassion particularly for the parents who have kids, like special educational needs, kids maybe that have been bullied or struggled, or, you know, in mainstream education, and I completely have compassion on that. I think, look, we're in a time where we've got to make tough decisions. It's a difficult economic climate, and this is a tax relief that's been taken away. Now, whether you agree or not, some people would say that, you know, private schools, you know, that it's a luxury item. You may not agree with this, but it's a luxury service because you can send your kid to a state school. It's not, you know, I've worked in Africa actually, where, you know, you don't necessarily have, you know, good in some countries, you know, in some of the townships, you don't have good schools at all. Yeah. We do have good state schools. We do have, obviously, lots of problematic state schools that actually, you know, need reform and need investment. But some people would argue it's a luxury service, and so should it get, you know, that kind of tax relief? And obviously, the government have come down on the side, no, it shouldn't get that tax relief. But as I say, I do have compassion on those parents that send their kids to private schools because they've got special educational needs, etc. But obviously, the bigger picture is 95% of kids go to state schools, and part of what...
I think it's 93%, that's what...
93%.
Although it probably will rise to that.
Part of the funds that are going to be raised from removing this tax relief are going to be invested in state services. Now, there is a debate to be had about that. Obviously, I know what side I fall down on it, but as I say, I completely have compassion. I had a chat with a gentleman just before the general election, and, you know, his child goes...
But, Susie, what's this going to make? 1.7 billion. Look, at what cost? What cost to the children? What are those that are highly academic, that are going to be held back from being in a really busy, full state classroom? What about those that have a real specialised talent that need to go to private school to flourish? We're stopping our talent here in this country. I think it's a disgrace. It's no thought to the children, to the parents, to the economic impact, and to the private schools itself in running a business. It is appalling what they're doing. What about, you know, I was very lucky to be able to go to a private school, and it was because my mum and dad worked night and day to put me through that school, and I was able to blossom. And you know what?
But lots of other parents work night and day, and they can't afford these schools.
Yeah, but those that why should you stop the aspiration and the opportunity? Taking that choice away, it's a disgraceful.
But they've not taken the choice away. You could still do it, but it's just going to cost you more money.
Yeah, but you're not going to be able to afford it. No, they can't afford it. That's the whole point. You've been taxed everywhere else from this budget. Now this.
What about
disgraceful.
This? But Susie, like, OK, so it's about 600,000 students apparently go to private school. I think it's a 1.6 billion fee that they're hoping to raise from this. But it's a variable that they can't control, because if a certain percentage of these people do take the children out of those schools, then the aim to raise that 1.6 billion, they won't reach it. And the effects will be catastrophic. And a lot of the teachers' unions are complaining about it because they're the ones that are going to be unemployed.
Yeah, I mean, you were saying something before. It's interesting because I think, I mean, I don't know loads about private education, but I think you were saying that the fees have been going up every year, and actually, you know, has much changed. And so, I mean, a question to me would be, especially for some of those bigger private schools, can they, you know, take this in themselves and actually not increase the fees on parents?
Well, what they do is they have bursaries, so bursaries for people who can less afford it.
Yeah.
And usually with some of their profits, they use that.
Yeah.
So the first thing that will go, the bursaries for the underprivileged children. So all the policy does is drive more people who are privileged up this pathway, and stops those who are less privileged from joining.
Yeah, I think, look, generally for me, again, as someone who's worked in the education sector and worked in lots of schools, schools, particularly in East London. I think the bigger dream for me, and this could be idealistic, is, you know, I want us to live in a country where it doesn't matter whether you are born in Newcastle or East London or Eton, that area, that all kids can fulfil their potential and can go to a good school where they get good education.
I think
and for me, that's the future dream.
I think we all want that.
We all
but
want
you should do that first before you then try and throw a wrecking ball
and some
into
people might
private
argue
schools.
they can't do
You're
that
stopping
without doing
aspiration,
this.
you're stopping talent, and I think it's a disgrace.
All right, well, let's hear from all of you, so I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. gbnews.com/your say. Should we go live now to hear from the Democrat presidential candidate Kamala Harris, who's speaking at a campaign event in Georgia?
I won those fights, and I pledge to you, if you give me the chance to fight on your behalf as president, there is nothing in the world that will stand in my way. And look, we know who Donald Trump is. Listen. And because we know this is not someone who is thinking about how to make your life better. This is someone who is increasingly unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, and the man is out for unchecked power. And in less than 90 days, it's either going to be him or me in the Oval Office. And here's the thing. So help spread the word, because part of it is to help people imagine. You can imagine in your mind the Oval Office, right? You can picture it. We've seen it on TV. So just imagine, if he is elected on day one, Donald Trump would walk in that Oval Office with his enemies list, stewing over an enemies list. When I am elected, I will walk in on your behalf with my to-do list. My to-do list. And at the top of my list is bringing down the cost of living for you. And that will be my focus every single day as president. I will give a middle-class tax cut to over 100 million Americans. I will enact the first ever federal ban on corporate price gouging on groceries. We need a medic over here, please. We need a medic over here. If everyone can just part a little bit so we can let somebody through. Okay. Okay. All right. See, this is what we do. We look out for each other. Right? That's how we roll. That's how we roll. And that's what leadership looks like. Everybody here. And among the things also on my to-do list is to fight to make sure that hardworking Americans can actually afford a place to live. Affordable housing, one of the highest priorities. My priorities include knowing that if you are caring for an elderly parent, we need to cover the cost of home care with Medicare, which we will do because I've been there. I took care of my mother when she was sick. I know what that is, what that work is. It is about trying to cook something someone feels like eating. It is about trying to help them put on their clothes. It's about trying to put a smile on their face or make them laugh from time to time. It's hard work, and it's work that is about dignity, and it is not right that the current situation is such that you'd either have to spend down your savings to qualify for Medicaid or quit your job to be able to take care of a family member, especially if you are in the sandwich generation which means taking care of your children while you're taking care of
Kamala Harris speaking there at a rally. That's a live piece there at an event in Georgia. Trump is also speaking elsewhere. Well, let's get the thoughts of my panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and political commentator Susie Stride. Susie, do you pay much attention to the American elections or Kamala Harris?
I do. I mean, I'm one of the people that went out and campaigned.
Is it?
Yes, I am. I am.
Well, you went to America?
Well, just so you know,
Did you go to America?
I was on my holiday.
You went to America?
Yeah. I was on holiday.
She reveals this now.
Sure. I mean, just so you know, this has been going on for 20 years. But I've never been to mainland America, so I did like a little road trip, which was really fun, and visited some friends. A friend of mine who lives in Silicon Valley, which is actually an interesting conversation for another day about learning from the Americans and how their economy's changed over the last 15 years. And then basically, I went to Lake Tahoe, which was lovely. Then I went over the border into Nevada and spent a couple of hours campaigning, which was really fascinating and interesting experience. So for me, I've always followed it a little bit, but for some reason this one just feels more exciting. I don't know if it's because it's not a knife edge and no one can call it, but I just feel like I want to stay up all night.
I am going to stay up all night, and it is very, very close. But Trump apparently is now in the lead because of Joe Biden's gaffe, calling his voters and supporters garbage, which was just diabolical. Why, you know, they really have to stop Joe saying these things. Well, you know, it's just unbelievable. Well, it is so close and it's very exciting.
Well, I'm looking forward to that as well. I'm going to stay up all night and watch that one, but we'll keep our eyes peeled on that one. But it's time now for the quickfire quiz, the part of the show where my panel and I test my panel on some of the other stories hitting the headlines right now. Joining me, Susie Stride. Susie, press your buzzer, please. And Lizzie Cundy, your buzzer, please. And please play along at home. Question 1. Earlier today, we saw Kemi Badenoch crowned winner of the Tory leadership race, but who came third in the contest? Lizzie Cundy.
Tom Tugendhat.
Press your buzzer.
Was it James Cleverly? But it wasn't.
It was James Cleverly, well done, Susie. Right, question 2. By how many votes did Kemi Badenoch defeat Robert Jenrick in the Conservative leadership contest? A, 10,000, B, 12,000, C, 14,000. Lizzie Cundy.
A.
Which is what?
10,000.
Susie, press your buzzer if you've got an answer.
I'm going to say 12,000.
Which is B?
Yeah.
Let's have a look, I think. Once again, Susie's right. Answer's 12,000.
I want to say this is a fluke.
Question 3. True or false? The world's largest captive crocodile who passed away this week lived to be at least 110. True or false? Lizzie Cundy.
It is indeed true.
OK.
I'm going to say it's true.
No, you should say false just in case she's
wrong.
wrong.
I'm sorry.
It is true, though. You are right. Yes, he was thought to be more than 110 years old. Wow. Cassius, the 5.48-metre or 18-foot reptile, also weighed over a tonne. He'd lived in a wildlife sanctuary on Green Island near Queensland in Australia. Where's him? Question 4. True or false? Manchester United have paid over €12 million. I've started, so I have to finish, to appoint Ruben Amorim as their new manager. I have to take Lizzie.
Oh, OK.
You buzzed in. Lizzie
It's
Cundy.
true.
It's true.
It is true, but I mean, isn't he like head coach rather than manager yet?
Whatever, whatever, you don't get the point.
He's no Alex Ferguson.
It's actually false, though. The answer is false. €10 million. I don't know what that was. Is this a different question?
Right,
question 5. Closest answer wins. How much money does Rachel Reeves reportedly make a year in rental income? I know this one. Come on, quick. Quick. Yes, Lizzie Cundy.
I'd say 100,000.
£100,000.
120,000. I'm just going to... No.
What, are you crazy? What is she renting? Some sort of... No, £74,000.
I don't know.
That's actually quite a lot, to be fair, so £74,000.
I just took your answer and
there you go.
Well, well done. But look, well done. It's a draw, actually. Yeah, so it's a draw. Well done, guys. Well, listen, throughout the show, I've been asking, is Kemi Badenoch the right choice to lead the Conservative Party? Well, let's have a look what you're saying. What do you think, Lizzie?
Well, I think it will be pretty tight, but I'd say yes.
Well, according to our Twitter poll, X poll, 37.5% of you say yes, and a whopping 62.5% of you think no. It should be Robert Jenrick.
Wow. I am quite shocked at that.
I'm not, because I personally wanted Robert Jenrick, but they're both very good candidates, so I will accept either one.
I found he's a Poundland Nigel Farage.
Well, let's see, because as I said before, the Tories are so ruthless. If she doesn't do the job, they'll get rid of her and put him in.
She's got to unite the party. She has to go back to being Conservative and unite. They have to find themselves.
I think one thing we agree on, they've got to find what they're about, and they've got to present that to the country, you know, and they've got to find a new vision, you know.
They've got to find a new vision. Well, on that bombshell, good luck to them, crikey. We've seen the mess they made the last time. They delivered us this government, but, you know, you may think that the Labour Party are great. Well, thank you so much to my brilliant panel. First-time panellist, Susie Stride, thank you very much for joining me. And also our regular, can't get rid of her, Lizzie Cundy, for joining me today.
Thank you, Nana.
And as ever, a huge thank you to you at home for your company. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, same time, same place. But up next is the Saturday 5. I'll leave you with some weather. Take care. Have a good day.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed soap